All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the city council meeting for Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. We have 5 council members present. We are missing tonight Councilmember Lamb and Councilmember Bloom, who may be joining us online momentarily. Our first item is the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by James Anderson. Come on up. Yep, to the podium there.
You stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item is our public comment period. This is your opportunity to address the city council on whatever is on your mind, hopefully pertaining to the city. And we give you 3 minutes. And if you're in the room, we just ask you to come to the microphone, give us your name, and tell us if you live in West Jordan, because we like to know that. And if you are online, we ask you to raise your hand on the Zoom so that we can be aware of your intention to want to address the council. So for anybody in the room, we'll go ahead and open this up. This is your opportunity to come on forward. Seeing the stampede at a minimum tonight. I guess everybody's out Christmas shopping. Mr. Anderson, anybody online with a hand raised?
Council Chair, there are 4 individuals online on Zoom, none of whom have raised their hand.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and move along then to the reports to council, close the public comment period for the record, and go to city council reports. This is for the 7 of us, or the 5 that are here, to address the council on what you've been up to lately. Mr. Councilmember Bador.
One of my latest callings was to be a part of the board for the Cultural Arts Society of West Jordan, and I was able to attend my first meeting with them to get that underway. So there's some things I'll be bringing to the council, some ideas and stuff as we get going, but I will say that I was pleasantly surprised at how prepared they are and how much they're really trying to do everything they can to have things in order. We talked about some ideas of new ways that we can help with the lighting situation at our new Arts Center, and also talked about some new cultural groups that want to be a part of the Cultural Arts Society of West Jordan, which was a part I really liked because, this isn't just about the type of cultural arts that some of us may be a part of, whether it's singing or acting or art or literary. It's about all of it. And so it was great to see that there are already groups in West Jordan that want to join and be a part of this society and work as a real unit to try to see what we can do to keep the arts going in West Jordan. So I was very pleased with how things were going that first meeting. Like I said, though, I do have a few things that they were a little shocked that I told them, but and I have some things that I think as we get going and have our meetings at the beginning of the year, some things I'll be addressing on how we can maybe make this an even more impactful unit as we go forward. But it was good to be a part of that, and I wish that it had happened sooner. And that's that.
Councilmember Green.
I just wanted to thank the employee committee for the great lunch that we had the other day. It's great to see the number of employees that we have that have been here forever and a day or longer. And so, no, it was nice to see the things about the employees of the year and managers of the year. And it was a good event. So thanks for letting us be part of that.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the council? I'll note that Councilmember Bloom arrived at 6:03 online. All right, seeing no further council reports, we'll go to the council office. Mr. Anderson.
I was just going to say, Councilmember Bloom did raise her hand. I don't know
Oh,
if she had
sorry.
a comment.
Thank
She
you,
should be
Councilmember
able-
Bloom. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, my voice is still out. I just wanted, I just wanted to mention that the weekly reports that we get from the city staff have been absolutely amazing. And I do want to say some of the standout moments of the last week include, and forgive me if you've already mentioned it, of Sherry Miller, our events coordinator, as Employee of the Year. And I am more than thrilled when I read that. In fact, I probably did a, oh my gosh, yay, woohoo of that. But I just wanted to give a shout out to the staff for everybody working diligently to keep our city in order. That our city departments are working hard to maintain and improve our infrastructure, support our community, drive economic growth. These efforts not only keep our city running smoothly, but they really do set us up for success. So I just wanted to make a shout out for that.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I skipped past you there. Mr. Anderson, then, council office.
Thank you, council. I just, since it is the last meeting of the year, traditionally, we've kind of summarized the results of your work over the past 12 months. So I'd like to thank Warren and Cindy who helped coordinate all this together. I'm going to get our screens working here. So as we close out the year, we want to reflect on the work accomplished by the City Council in 2024. Here's some statistics of key activities and achievements. You held 22 regular City Council meetings. You held 17 Committee of the Whole meetings, 16 agency meetings such as the Municipal Building Authority, the Redevelopment Agency, and the Fairway Estates. You held 3 special meetings, which includes the Truth in Taxation. Public hearings, you held 52 public hearings during council meetings over the course of the year, 7 public hearings during the agency meetings. There were 56 ordinances proposed, 46 ordinances passed, 44 resolutions proposed, reflecting the council's focus on strategic initiatives and priorities, 39 resolutions approved supporting the community goals and objectives, 11 titles. And just for the residents that are here, titles are like an entire book of code. Like a title of a book. So 11 titles of code have been amended, modernizing and improving the city's legal framework. And then 38 sections of code, those would be like subchapters in the code. So 38 sections of code have been amended. This year's efforts represent the dedication and collaborative work of the council to address the evolving needs of the city of West Jordan. The only other thing that I have is that you had authorized the purchase of Swagit, which is a module that allows closed captioning and transcription of city council meetings and planning commission meetings. That technology has arrived, and we're planning to stand that system up with Granicus and our existing council chamber technology tomorrow, and hope to test somehow in between all the holidays so that we're ready sometime in January is our goal. And so thank you for that. And thank you for all you've done this past year in 2024. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. We need, what we need on this graph is the number of words eliminated from code. Like how many words were in code when we started and how many words are in code now? Because when you see, 11 code titles amended and 38 sections, you think, wow, we did a lot of lawmaking, when in reality, we did a lot of law deleting.
And if you don't mind, there was one title that you amended that went from 33 pages to 8. So it's a lot of pages.
Yeah, and I don't think we added 25 of them back anywhere else, so that's good. All right, let's go to the mayor's report. Mayor Burton.
Thank you. That was a compelling graph you put up there with all those meetings and changes you did. But I have a feeling that Public Works did more orange cones this year with the road construction than you had on that chart. But hopefully those cones are more permanent. Okay. Hey, last Friday's event, the first Friday where we combined our holiday kickoff with a concert was spectacular. It was so well attended. I know some of you were there. It was great. We had the drone show. We had Santa Claus showing up on the fire engine. They had s'mores. They had a bunch of other things, and ended with a superior concert to bring in the holiday season for us. So it was a wonderful turnout, and that's just a couple of the pictures of what happened over there. So thanks for those of you who helped it happen. I know Councilmember Shelton was there, and Councilmember Green was there, and there are probably some other council members. Anyway, thank you. Every year in West Jordan, there's this interfaith Christmas concert choir, and that was also well attended again this year. We're fortunate to have the people to reach across their little boundaries and invite other people of all faiths to this. And if you were unable to make it this year, look forward to it next year. They've been doing this for several years, and I hope to see them continue to do that. As you know, Senator Romney, who's been representing Utah, is wrapping up his time, and I had the opportunity to meet with him at his farewell reception. Adam Gardner was there too, but I didn't get a picture of him, so I apologize. But we had some good turnout from other people, a couple other mayors who were there at that event too, as we move forward. And also the Senator-elect Curtis was there and had an opportunity to chat with him for a little bit and keep West Jordan on the radar there. With the holidays coming up, we will be closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So prepare for that, and also on New Year's Day. So plan your schedules around that, and just know that you can get some things done on those days when less things are happening at the City Hall. And just as a footnote, I had the opportunity Saturday to go with my grandkids out to the Wheels Park, and I got my rollerblades off the shelf. They've been sitting there for, I've had it for 20 some odd years, but it's been probably 3 or 4 years since I went rollerblading. So I went there with my grandkids and had a great experience. And I only wiped out once, but I didn't break anything, but I got this cool brace for my sprain on my wrist. But you know what? I went back to that same spot that tackled me, and I went back and accomplished it, even though I had been hurt, and I made it work. So our Wheels Park is doing great. And if you haven't had an opportunity to take something with wheels on there, I invite you to come out and put it to good use. And we're looking forward. That was a great thing we brought into the city this year. And the next phase begins in the spring. So, and it's the most wonderful time of the year. So I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I'll go to city staff administrators report. Corbin.
Thank you, Chair. Calvin, you mentioned the employee luncheon or the Christmas luncheon we had. Council members, thank you for coming. It really means a lot. Thank you for being there as you were able. For those that weren't able to make it, we missed you. Thanks for coming up and shaking the hands of the employees for their longevity awards, the Employee of the Year, Manager of the Year awards. Those Employee of the Year and Manager of the Year awards are given peer to peer. I just wanted you to know that. They're not selected by the mayor, myself. They're not selected by their supervisors. These are folks recognized by their peers and honored through a nominating and selection process by the employee association. So they're really great awards because it's employees recognizing the value of others. The mayor mentioned the Wheels Park. We're always trying to find ways for the mayor to kill himself at the Wheels Park, and we're adding to it. As you know, what's out there is the first phase. This week we got formal recognition or formal notification that we're receiving a TRCC grant to help fund the next phase. So with the Rio Tinto sponsorship money and the grant, we're trying as much as possible to find outside sources to help pay for this Wheels Park. We were successful with that in the first phase and hope to be successful with that ongoing as well. Speaking of things happening out at Ronwood Park as well, in the upcoming retreat on January 10th and 11th, we're going to show you the conceptual plans for the rec center and the master plan area for Ronwood Park. And we need to go out to bid for taking those rec center plans now to a schematic plans so that we can be as far along the process as possible in our partnership with the county for submitting a ZAP application joint between the city and the county for an eventual rec center out there. So Corey and his team are working very hard on that. That's probably their #1 priority. in our Parks and Rec inventory and making sure that we're all lined up now that the ZAP funding has been reauthorized by voters in the last election. Then finally, I want to just give you a quick update on the Community Arts and Events Center. It is on schedule. It's looking great. They've hung drywall in much of the building now. They've hung glass. And assuming our transfer switches come in on time at the end of January, that's a big if, but if those come in on time at the end of January, we should be on schedule for an opening. The schedule says May, but that's assuming still everything goes well. But so far, so good. Cirque and Method Studio have done a great job on that project. That's it from us tonight.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a quick second of personal privilege because I forgot to mention during the council reports, I was able to attend the Midvale council meeting a couple weeks ago or last week. As you may or may not know, Midvale's mayor resigned about a month ago, and they went through a process of selecting a new mayor. So congratulations in Midvale to our friend and colleague, Councilman Dustin Gettle is now Mayor Dustin Gettle in Midvale. So, and our neighbors to the east, just across the street. And I just happened to, I was there for that night. There were, for those of us who are familiar with coin flips for deciding vacancies, there were several tie-breaking coin flips in that meeting. So it was a sight to behold. They just couldn't decide. Kevin?
Let's make sure we welcome all the high school students too.
Oh, welcome all the high school students. too.
There's a bunch of, how many of you here from West Jordan High?
Oh, anybody here from another school?
Anybody here that's not here from West Jordan High? And we got one.
All right.
Well, thank you for
Cover
being
those
here
agendas.
and watching us. There's nothing like making sausage and making laws. So, you know, they're equating. So thanks for being here and hope you learned something tonight.
Well, the next items on the agenda are your opportunities to have a voice in your government. We have 6 public hearings on the agenda tonight. All, I'm sure, to draw several exciting comments. Let's go to the first one. We're going to go item 5A on the agenda. This is ordinance 24-56, amending the consolidated fee schedule. Start with Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. Back in September, October, November, you met and made amendments. The council made amendments to both Title 16 and Title 7 as it relates to administrative hearing process and parking. And in those packets, there was a consolidated fee schedule as part of the attachments that supported the changes that you were making. However, the consolidated fee schedule, since it deals with financials of the city, has its own requirements for public hearings. It's typically done separate from the code amendments. So this is just bringing that back to you. The proposed fee schedules found with a red line is attachment A, and the clean version is attachment B. There were a couple questions that were asked of me related to the let me get to it here real quick. That were related to the words that were used on code violations. So on line 11 of your packet, that was changed to maximum daily fine per violation of $105. And then if it's corrected to within 14 calendar days, there would be no charge. It would be waived. And if it's corrected, if not corrected within the 14 calendar days, the first 14 days thereafter would be 53 a day. Just to, you've had compassion for residents that have these fees, at least you've expressed that. And then the 15th day and thereafter would be that maximum fine of 105. That was one question that was asked of the council office. So the parking violation, which is part of your Title 7 amendments, that's lines 2 through 6. So it's $80 fine, paid within 14 days, it's 20. Paid within 15 and 30 calendar days, it's 40. All other violations of city code, first offense 250, that's down on line 19 through 22 of the clean copy. Third would be 750. Those individuals would go to an administrative process, administrative hearing process if there were issues that were raised. And Mr. Boyce is here if you have any questions to ask of him. The second section was requested by our city treasurer for the development review fees. One of the concerns we had, and Patrick, I may need your help on this one, but when staff goes out, engineering goes out and does an inspection, there was a cost, if I remember. But if they didn't have it complete and they needed a re-inspection, we would go out, but there was nothing included in the fee schedule. So this kind of reverses that. The first couple of inspections are no cost, it's just kind of included with the permit. But if they need more than 2 re-inspections, re-inspection, if they go to second and third, then they would pay for that. Is that how I?
So that we're getting eaten up, the building inspection department, by a couple of developments that were requiring 4, 5, 6 inspections. They weren't correcting the same things over and over and over again, but we didn't have a mechanism in place to charge for anything after the first inspection and then the second kind of complimentary re-inspection. So what this does is it adds a $75 fee for anything after the second. So you get 1 inspection with your fee, you get a second one that's essentially free, and then anything after that would require a $75 fee. It helps cover the cost of our inspectors going out time and time again, and then it also has a little bit of a motivating factor for people to address the issues on the first inspection and get it taken care of so that we're not re-inspecting the same problems over and over and over again. So that was their request.
Councilmember Shelton with a question.
I have a what if question.
Yeah.
So if an inspector were to go out, make their inspection and has a list of 3 things that need to be corrected, they fix those 3 things, inspector comes back out to re-inspect. What if the inspector finds a 4th thing on that second visit that maybe they slipped by them on the first visit? How is that handled?
So that's a good question. I would say that, first of all, Doug Rolfe, Employee of the Year. So he's the building inspector. He's so good, I think he'll catch everything. But in the weird case that he does not, in addition to stripping him of his Employee of the Year award, we would probably just have him be on the house. I think what this is meant to do is prevent the 5th, 6th, and 7th re-inspections. But if it's our personnel, our staff that's kind of causing the need for it, then yeah, I don't think they'd have a problem fixing that.
So now I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Do we need to put something, do we need to put an asterisk in the code that says that? Or on the consolidated fee schedule, is that if we generate something, then we'll take a look at that? And 2, so anyway, that's my first question. Do we need to put an annotation on the fee schedule for that?
If you're asking me what I think, I would say no. And here's why. City of West Jordan is going to take care of its residents in the name of customer service. I don't think that the fee schedule is going to need to dictate that aspect of it. If it makes you feel better, you could put it in there, but I don't foresee this being something where we create the problem and then we charge them for something that we've created. I think that the professionals in that department will take care of it.
I guess after Councilmember Shelton asked that question, I'm just thinking, and your response, I'm thinking, does this create a situation where we can be accused of, well, you fixed one, but you didn't do another, and it starts to look like we're using the legal terms arbitrary and capricious on how we apply the fee schedule, and that's what I want to make sure we avoid. So, it's not going to be something that it's going to stop me from voting tonight on this, but the question would be, and maybe it's just something that you and Mr. Langford and Duncan and the rest of the staff can look at and say, yes, I don't want us to penalize if I used to see this all the time in some other jobs that I've worked. You would check things off and then somebody else would come back and say, yeah, but you missed this and this and this too. And now we're starting over again. And I don't want somebody to say, well, now you owe us the money and, but then we waive it, but the next time we don't. And you know where I'm going? So
Yeah.
If there's a way that we can do that, that keeps it simple, I'm all for, you all, from what Councilmember Jacob said, I'm looking at how we can delete from code, not add to it. But is there a way that we can do that in a way that doesn't come across as arbitrary and capricious?
Yeah, I mean, on this particular issue, if you'd like, I can follow up with Mr. Langford. I can speak with Mr. Rolfe and with Duncan, and we can get together and
If there's
see.
something that we can do, great. If
Sure.
there's not, no big deal.
Sure.
The next question that I had is on the maximum fine, this third or subsequent offense, actually any offense, but particularly the third. We charge $750, but then just underneath that in the chart, it says there's a late penalty, 10% annum compounded monthly. Does that mean that if somebody has a $750 fine, we're compounding that $75 a year? I can only do the 10%. I can't do the compounded monthly in my head. Are we adding the interest and it goes above the 750?
And I can just speak to my understanding. My understanding is that generally if we get a decision from our ALJ, that decision is what we base it on, and that we're probably only in reality adding those types of interest fees on in extreme cases where the city is actually maybe fronting some of the costs. And maybe I'm thinking something like if we have an extreme abatement that we've performed and the city has fronted tens of thousands of dollars to clean up a environmental issue, that might be something that we're looking for interest to be added on if it's not being taken care of. I don't think that I think we have so many cases coming through. It would just take too much manpower for us to add interest onto smaller type code infraction type cases.
Okay. I guess my concern, and maybe we can talk about this more, and I've mentioned this before in some prior meetings. Honestly, I don't like the 750. I know 750 is the max under, I think that's the max we can, that the state law allows for an infraction, if I remember right. I just want, and I don't like that amount, but if we're going with an infraction amount, I want to make sure that we're capped at that. So maybe that's something that we can look at in the future as well, so that we're not compounding. And the other part of that is what I want to make sure of that we're doing is what's first and second offense. And maybe this is something that we have to talk about here later on, and it's not part of this, but as we talk about first and second offenses and third offenses, if somebody has, let's say they have a tree that's hanging over the street that's too high or too short, and they also have weeds that are too high, is that a first and second offense or is that one offense? And so you know where I'm going with that. And I just want to make sure that that's going to be clear when we apply this.
I can clear that up though. So that's going to fall under that top portion, which is like the nuisance. The section that you're referencing with the first, second, third offenses, those are generally referred or reserved for other types of offenses in the code. So if we have a business in the city that's operating without a license and they're operating an unlawful type of business within the city, we want to have some flexibility in issuing a civil citation for breaking the city's ordinances. And we have had these. We've had groups come into the city of West Jordan, operate illegal businesses for completely unlawful purposes. And we've kind of been stymied on what remedies we can undertake.
You're
So the
talking-
trees is on that top part.
Okay, so you're talking about the issues that we had down with the
I am.
particular reception center?
I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay, that may make more sense.
And for your information as well, these are things that have already been in the code for years.
Right.
The Title 16 has said, code, you can issue civil citations and then fine them as according to the fee schedule, but the council's never adopted a fee schedule with fines for those civil violations. And so that's what we're trying to do is insert into the code the parking fees.
Oh, absolutely.
Input into the code the civil citation fees. Really, we've just kind of reformatted some of the other code enforcement nuisance type issues that are already in there. So
I just want to make sure that if we're modifying the fee schedule, we know what we're
Yeah.
fining people for,
Right.
penalizing people for, and it's clear.
right.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. My question is actually, I think, going to be more for Scott, but let me pose it and you guys can rock, paper, scissors for it. It was just brought up with the inspections and what happens if there's an inspection and then on a subsequent inspection, another violation is found or whatever. In my experience with inspections, opening a business in West Jordan, having inspections come out for my tenant improvements and stuff like that, you inspect everything. And then when you list what fails, when you come back for the reinspection, correct me if I'm wrong, you only re-inspect the things that failed the first time, right? So you're not gonna, so if all the drywall is normal and it looks great and you found a plug that, an electrical outlet that's not up to code, when you come back, you just inspect that code. The walls could be crumbling at that point, but they already passed inspection, so you're not gonna look at that again.
That's
right?
pretty extreme, but yeah.
Right.
Yes, our inspectors are so busy. We don't have time to go. And if we see a major life safety issue, then yes, we're obligated to call that out. But we're not taking multiple bites of the apple. We just simply don't have the manpower nor the desire to do that. We follow those the four-way inspections and we march all the way through. And one point of clarification though, since we're talking about building inspections, the amendments that I think Chair Jacob, you're referring to line 99 or 100, those are planning and engineering inspection fees and not associated with the building permit. It's kind of a separate thing. You pay for your building permit. And so that's handled separately. This is planning staff, engineering staff going out and reviewing the site plan and other major points of infrastructure.
Gotcha.
So,
Perfect.
but you're on the right track, yes.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up. Mr. Anderson, I believe is going to facilitate some communication here.
Yes, thank you. I received a text from Councilmember Bloom. Her voice is giving up and giving out. So she texted me a question. I'm just going to read it verbatim from my city phone of a text. And it just says, is there a clear protocol for when this fee is assessed? Will it apply equally across all inspection types, or will it depend on the complexity of the property or situation? That's one.
So I think the answer to that is what Mr. Langford has just said is that it's specific to those engineering and planning inspections.
Okay. Second part is what additional support will be available for property owners or businesses who face repeated inspections due to delays outside of their control, e.g. delays from contractors or weather?
So my understanding is that this isn't based on a timetable. This is just mainly based on whether or not they're taking care of the issues that have been raised in the initial inspection and reinspection.
And the last couple items that she asked, how does the reinspection fee align with best practices in other cities? Second part of that, are we ensuring that the fee is competitive and fair within the broader region?
Those I may not be able to speak to because I received the amount actually from finance, and so I would have to defer. I'm not sure exactly where the amount comes from. But you can, I know the original inspection amount, I think is 286 or thereabouts in there. And then $75 on the reinspection after the second. So.
And those are all the questions that Councilmember Bloom has asked, Chair.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions before we get opining and things? Let's open a public hearing. Are we okay with that? Perfect. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this. If you wish to address the council on these amendments to the fee schedule, this would be our opportunity to do so. Same kind of criteria apply as at the beginning. If you're in the room, you can just come up to the microphone, give us your name. And if you're online, you need to raise your hand or otherwise indicate that you desire to speak. We'll go ahead and open that up. Anybody in the room who'd like to address the council on this? All right, I'm not seeing anybody online, Mr. Anderson, who's got a hand raised or otherwise indicated a desire to address the council.
Chair, currently there are 7 people in the Zoom meeting, and none of whom have raised their hand.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing then and bring this back to the council to discuss, debate, move, pass, fail, otherwise discuss this. Councilmember Shelton.
I think I personally feel satisfied with their explanation. I don't know that we need to amend. But I'd like to hear if anyone disagrees with that.
Well, and if we do that,
Councilmember
we can
Green.
do that at a later date. So if somebody looks at something, so no, I was going to make the motion, since I got the mic on, can I just make a motion
Move.
to approve? Can I move to approve ordinance 24-56?
Second.
You may. Motion made by Councilmember Green to approve, seconded by Councilmember Shelton. Is there discussion to the motion? I'm seeing none. Mr. Anderson, is Councilmember Bloom raising a hand? Just because I can't see that.
No hand raised.
She is losing that voice. I'll leave it up to Alan to interrupt if you are raising a hand to let me know. All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Thank you. I show the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. We'll go to our second of 6 public hearings. This is ordinance 24-46, amending West Jordan City Code Title 17, alcohol beverage control and uses. And we'll go to Mr. Boyce, I think. Hey, he's deep in conversation, so I didn't want to interrupt.
Mr. Murray's explaining to me the layout of things I didn't know. Thank you. You'll hear from me a few times, unfortunately. This is Title 17 revisions to the alcohol code. This is the one where we are making some substantial revisions, simplifying, reducing, condensing a lot of what we've had in there. I think that as we discussed kind of previously in the committee of the whole, this is an evolutionary step, if you will, taking it from what we started with and taking the next step into modernizing the way that the city of West Jordan addresses alcohol permits and the use of alcohol within the city for our businesses. I think you obviously have read it, but the highlights would probably just be making sure that we're not duplicating what the state is already doing. The Department of Alcohol and Beverage Services, they do a great job. They've got a huge staff. They've got a huge review that they go through. Our code has historically duplicated almost exactly what they do. It's probably time for us to not do that and to allow us to be more business friendly and allow the companies to come in that want to do business in West Jordan. So.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on this? We've had some robust discussions in our committee of the whole on this, so. All right, I'm not seeing any questions.
Great.
So
Thank you.
stay tuned and we'll have a public hearing and if there's any questions after that. So we'll go ahead and open this up to the public. Anybody who wants to address the council on this issue, in order to not repeat myself, I'll just say the same rules apply. Just come on up if you're in the room, and we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. All right, I'm not seeing anybody in the room stampeding to the microphone. Anybody online indicating a desire to speak?
Right now, Chair, there are 7 attendees in the Zoom meeting, none of whom have raised their hand. Councilmember Bloom has raised her hand for when you get past.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the
Public
public hearing then. And Mr. Ernsten, I'll go ahead and let you read Councilmember Bloom's questions for staff. Yeah, Patrick, I think this will be for you. She does have a few.
Okay, so her text, how will the streamlined process affect timelines for businesses seeking alcohol-related permits, assuming this is a state process, not local?
Great question. As an example, in the past, we've required background checks for the city. We've required bonds to be provided for the city. The state already does that. We've cut that out of our code, so applicants will not need to wait for their background checks. They will not need to go seek bonds, have the paperwork sent into our business licensing division. Those are just kind of 2 quick off the top of my head thoughts. But it should make it much more quick and straightforward for them to get their local consent from us.
Okay, are there any anticipated cost savings or financial implications for businesses or the city as a result of these changes?
I think with, yes, excuse me, especially with the bond issue, we have to track bonds. We have to dedicate staff time and effort to track the bonds, to track the background checks, to follow up on background checks, to follow up on missing information. We've requested and required in the past so much information that really is not necessary for us, that it's really going to cut down on the amount of time that each of our business licensing coordinators need to spend on any individual application. So I think that they're going to be elated about this. I think that they're going to be able to dedicate their time to other issues that require their actual attention, as opposed to just processing paperwork that again, the state's already going to handle.
Okay, 3 more. How will enforcement of alcohol-related regulations be monitored after these changes?
So the 2 ways. One is, and I hate kind of saying this, but DABS is the big dog in the state. The Beverage Services Division has all of the power within the alcohol arena. If they pull your license, there's no secondary group to get it from. So we're going to rely on our partners from the state who have been working with us in the past. We've had some criminal investigations, some state division of investigation that has worked with us on alcohol issues. We also have our wonderful code enforcement team that's active in looking at these things, making sure that licenses are up to date, making sure that premises are kept in accordance with the plans that are submitted to us. We've got 4 or 5 code enforcement officers that are almost constantly out in the field looking at different issues. So those are our 2 main enforcement mechanisms.
Okay, and this next question may be for Mr. Lee or Mr. Jerome or the mayor, because I don't think you can answer this one, Mr. Boyce. Will there be additional public outreach or education efforts to clarify the purpose and scope of these changes to residents?
We hadn't anticipated that. This is a change of code that specifically affects businesses applying for a very narrow portion of the business license and alcohol license, not the residents at large. And so we haven't assumed to communicate to the residents at large about this.
Yeah, and maybe I can just tack on to that. This doesn't change any of the proximity requirements, right? So This is not going to allow bars to be closer to schools or residences or homes. It's not changing the hours. The establishments are going to be able to be functioning. It's not changing the way that we're doing our zoning tables or anything. We are really keeping a lot of it intact so far as those. And a lot of those regulations are state mandated that we couldn't change if we wanted to anyways.
Okay. The last question, will there be regular reviews or evaluations of this ordinance to monitor any unintended effects after it's approved?
I can say 100%. I personally meet with the business licensing coordinators regularly to see if there's issues that are coming up. I think if there are licensing problems that come up in the way that we're processing them, or if DABS is seeing issues on their end with what we're providing so far as local consent and things go, we can definitely address those. But I don't expect any of those. I don't anticipate any issues coming up. But if there are problems, then I'm happy to bring something back to the council so that you guys can boost your stats for 2025, get those chapter revisions up. How many? 38? That's
38.
weak. Come on, we got to go higher.
Those are all the questions that Councilmember Bloom submitted to me.
Thank you. Councilmember Green.
Well, and just kind of address a couple of questions that Councilmember Bloom had. If we recall, we made a substantial, it was a major revision to the alcohol code just a couple of years ago. What was it, 2 years ago?
2021, I think.
Yeah, 3 years ago. It was a couple of years, anyway. A couple of years ago, we made a major revision because our alcohol ordinance was not as precise, and it was a bureaucrat, it caused some problems. So we reviewed it then and made some major progress to get so that we're to the point now where we can do it. And I think it shows that the process works, because what we're trying to do is so we can get that steakhouse in, so we can get the Trader Joe's and get the steakhouse next to it, right next to the Costco. We need to be business friendly, right? And I think this helps put us on that trajectory. I think the thing that what you said the most is where we wanted to be is that under state law, it's local consent. All we're doing is granting consent that we know that's going there, because that helps us with, some of those code enforcement, business inspections, those kind of things, some zoning things, but it's just consent. We're not licensing anybody.
Right.
Alcohol beverage, it drives me crazy that they changed their name, because that was so long, it was alcohol beverage control, and now it's alcohol beverage service.
Friendlier service.
But those guys license.
Yeah.
We don't license the alcohol business. We consent to having them there. And I think that's, as we have progressed over the last 3 years, we've realized that the process has gone from where we're trying to, what you said, duplicate the state or even more, and gone overboard in some respects on some old ordinances. We brought that forward, and now what we're saying is we're doing what we need to do to grant the local consent so DABC can finish the license. I think that's where we're going, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that.
Any further discussion? Questions? We are post-public hearing, so this is where a motion would come into play, et cetera. Councilmember
My
Green.
hand's close to the button. I'll just say I move to approve ordinance number 2446.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's roll call vote.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton.
Yes.
Thank you. I show the motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to public hearing 5C. This is the resolution 24-043, amending the city's adopted community development block grant consolidated plan. I was gonna get through that with no mistakes, dang it. And program year 2024 annual action plan, Megan Jensen.
Thank you, Chair. So this resolution is to amend the CDBG 5-year consolidated plan and our 2024 annual action plan. It's a pretty simple amendment. It would just add economic development as a priority or a goal in the plans. The reason for this is because this year we approved to fund Upwards, which is a business that helps childcare providers. And so they are, as defined by HUD, an economic development activity. But HUD won't actually let us fund them until we've added this as a goal in our plans. And so that's all that this amendment would do, just to add that in so that we can actually fund them and make sure we're in line with all of HUD's requirements. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Councilmember Green.
Can I make a comment? I was informed earlier that this is Megan's first time presenting in front of the council. You did a great job. Keep it up.
Thanks.
That wasn't even a question, but Councilmember Bloom has some questions. Mr. Anderson's not here, so I will go ahead and
I can try to
read
talk.
those.
I can try to talk so it makes sense. I was
Oh.
trying to type fast.
Go ahead, Councilmember Bloom.
So how will we ensure, okay, hold on. After 12 months, are there any plans in place to ensure that these childcare businesses continue to thrive? Is there like a follow-up support system for the long-term sustainability of these? And with the with the reported shortage of the 6,100 childcare slots, how does the city plan to continue supporting the expansion of child services beyond the Boost program? And is there an opportunity to further collaborate with other childcare programs or providers? And then how can we make sure that they are reaching the most underserved children?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can speak to our CDBG program. So next year we'll be doing our next round for our 5-year plan, and we'll do a needs assessment. And so we can look into that. And if we see that this is a continuing need, then we can consider looking at more funding for businesses like this.
I just wanted to add one other thing is part of what, I'm Taylor Jensen. Megan is the lead on our CDBG, but I help her on some stuff. One of the things that Boost is doing, it's actually technology improvement. So that would be an ongoing benefit to the businesses that would benefit because they're going to get those technology improvements as well.
Yeah. And I would just add that under the scope of CDBG, this is an annual grant, an annual allocation that they can continue to apply for if they have continual needs, and the city can address it with all the other applications we get for CDBG when those come in. Councilmember Shelton had a question.
Councilmember Jacob, I think you just answered my question, and it stemmed from the original question, which was, how do we make sure these businesses stay viable in the future? They're meant to serve underserved population who is lower income, is that correct?
Yes.
And so my concern was, well, okay, we get these businesses really rolling and then just pull the carpet out from under their feet, so to speak, by not giving them continuing their funding. So I guess that's not really a concern though, but that was my concern.
Your concern is concerned. All right. Any further questions before we open the public hearing? All right, I'm seeing none. We'll go ahead and go to the public hearing. Thank you, Megan. And this is again your opportunity to address the council on this issue. Anybody would like to address the council, come on up to the mic or raise your hand online. I know people are here for something, we just haven't gotten to it yet. All right, seeing none here, Mr. Anderson, quick yes or no is good. Anybody online with a hand raised?
There are 6 individuals online, Chair, and one has her hand raised, Lily Alexander.
Say that again.
One has their hand raised, Lily Alexander.
All right, Ms. Alexander, you can go ahead and unmute and you should have, you'll have 3 minutes to address the council.
Hello there. Thank you so much, honorable members of the City Council. Thanks for the opportunity to provide a public comment. My name is Lily Alexander, and I'm representing Upwards, the administrator of the Boost program. I wanted to add some context to your questions. Yes, the Boost program would be an ongoing benefit. Our motto is, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So it is a sustainable program. We do offer technology tools. They are free after the program year ends. I'd like to give some really great updates as well. Our goal was to support 7 providers, but we were met with so much enthusiasm that we have an additional 2 providers that want to join the program, and we've added them to the wait list for next year if funded. We are also supporting 50 families through the program, and we have created 3 new jobs so far. And as Megan mentioned, we, as a CDBG program, all of the providers participating do qualify as low income, and the goal is to help them transition out of that income bracket and run their businesses as efficiently as possible. I would like to add one more thing, and that is that we have a childcare scholarship program in place in Park City and Summit County. And I would love to speak with, the mayor or anyone else, city manager, about expanding that program to West Jordan. It's been very successful in terms of the local economy, but also improving the local workforce. And it has been nationally recognized by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. So that's it for my 3 minutes, and I thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anybody else online have a hand raised for the public hearing?
No, no one else has their hand raised for the
Perfect,
public
thank you.
hearing.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing then and bring this back to the council. We'll go to Councilmember Whitelock.
Thank you. I've served on a couple of different childcare committees the past couple of years. I would say it's one of the hot topics, not only at ULCT, but at the state legislature. And it is something needed. There is something I want to remind all of us, though. CDBG are passed through federal dollars. So as long as we keep getting those dollars, we can keep passing them on. But there is that. And I love that this particular program includes home daycares, because those are an important part of the daycare community. And oftentimes, because they are home daycare, those providers are busy doing the care. And so they're not at the Capitol and at the meetings like the corporate daycare centers are. So I'm glad that this was chosen, and thank you for adding economic development. I think it's a great add.
Thank you. Further discussions, motions, comments, questions? Councilmember Whitelock.
I'll move to approve resolution 24-043, amending the city's adopted CDBG consolidated plan and the program year action plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Whitelock, seconded by Councilmember Bedore for a change of pace for the evening. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing no discussion, let's go to a roll call vote.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bedore,
Yes.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Let's moving right along now. We got ordinance, this is public hearing 5D on the agenda, ordinance 24-57. adopting an updated water conservation plan for the city of West Jordan. Mr. Davenport. Good to see you.
Thanks for letting me be here today. As you know, in 1988, the Utah legislature passed the Water Conservation Act, which requires water providers of 500 or more connections to submit a conservation plan to the state every 5 years. We first did it in 1999, and we did it again in 04, 09, 2014, and 2019. It's our turn to do a new conservation plan. We have taken this plan, or a draft version of this plan, to the committee of the whole and got your feedback. We also went to planning commission and got some feedback. The plan presented before you today is a little bit different than the one we went to for committee of the whole. And so I would love to get feedback again today, and hopefully we'll be able to adopt this as well. I want to point out that there are some conservation goals, and these are some of the things that changed from the draft version you saw in the committee of the whole. I made some of the changes because of your requests. The first goal is to keep our water demand below 170 gallons per capita day. The goal number 2 for the city is that we reduce non-functional turf in city-owned facilities by 100,000 square feet by 2030. Goal 3, to encourage the reduction of non-functional turf in private residential areas by 100,000 square feet by 2030. And the goal 4, the city would like to keep system demands within currently secured water rights. We'll go on to the next part here. Our current program that we have, thank you. Our current program that we have includes rebates from Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. These programs include Flip Your Strip, Local Scrape Rewards, Toilet Rebate Program, and Smart Controller Program. In 2023, West Jordan residents saved over $44,000 in rebates for these programs. We also offer a water bill comparison that allows residents to receive a 13th-month usage comparison on their bills, along with a reminder to conserve water. This year, the city has reduced our non-functional turf areas. We have removed over $200,000 worth of landscaping in public areas. Our current program also has a tiered rate water structure, which encourages residents to conserve water. As the more water they use, the higher price they are charged. The program changes that we're proposing, the first one is we would like to apply for grants from Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District so that we could, in the future, hire a water conservation specialist to help West Jordan residents and customers fully utilize those rebate programs and other programs the city may offer in the future. Their job would be to help with landscape replacement plans, help apply for those grants. They could also review new landscaping grants and offer education for water groups. Another goal that we added was to have a web page that helps residents to find resources for water conservation. That might include how much water they should apply to their lawn, where they can find water-wise plants in the valley, and where they can purchase irrigation supplies and whatnot as well. We're also have a goal to keep our landscape ordinances up to date. The state of Utah continues to update the laws. I expect in the next 5 years, there'll be more laws which come from the state of Utah, which govern landscaping, both public and private. We want to work with our public services department to continue to reduce non-functional turf areas in parks and park strips. And we want to work with our private resident customers like HOAs to find ways to incentivize their turf removal as well. The last thing we want to do to help residents is we want to create a better leak mitigation program so that we can alert customers to leaks and also help them to find them. Do you have any questions? That's my presentation.
Councilmember Green has a question.
Okay.
Two questions or comments. The leak mitigation, does that, I know this includes the mayor, does that include rolling out an app so that people can monitor their own water usage?
Yes, and quite honestly, in the next 5 years, I hope that we have a program that will send people, I I was looking at something just this week that would send a text, it would send you an email, and it would even do an automated phone call if you don't have one of those things. And so there's plenty of programs that are starting to be available that can really help us to communicate with our residents better. So I really think that, again, remember, this is a 5-year plan, like a master plan, and we need to do a better job of reaching out to our customers. The other thing that might include, Kevin, is I'd really like to purchase some, I prepare you this for future budget requests, right? I'd really like to buy some equipment that can help us sound leaks. So the most common thing I hear from residents are, great, you told me I have a leak, I have no idea where it's at, right? So it would be great if I could offer a little more help than go hire a plumber. Okay, what was your second? What was your next one?
The second was the comment on the links to the water conservation in the page. Don't forget that your neighbor works for another water conservation agency, and they have some web pages already linked up that can help people order. So get with Cynthia.
That's what I was thinking about.
It was a cool demonstration at ULCT about what we can embed so that people know where they can actually go out, and on some of it, they can actually order the plants and have them delivered. So that's where, yeah, if that's what you're thinking.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, that's good then. Thank
Because a
you.
lot of times, the reason why people don't do that landscaping is they don't know where to buy this. They don't know, well, that sounds really cool, but where do you purchase that? Or what plant should I even use, and that kind of stuff. So we want to do better in the next 5 years to help people.
Councilmember Whitelock.
So as you all got forwarded the email that I sent to Greg, Mr. Davenport, thank you for answering my questions. I do want you to answer this though, and not that the council decides. I know the council decides ultimately, but the council decides based on your recommendation. So my question is, there is a lot of concern in our community about water rates keep going up, and they're right. Do you foresee that that will just keep continuing? Do you see a point where they will level out and every year won't be an increase?
Let me go ahead and answer that, and then maybe Paul wants to chime in here too. You know, honestly, I haven't started next year's budget calculations or presentations, so I haven't actually made any decisions as to what I'm really going to suggest to the council. I haven't talked about it with Denise, but let me give you a heads up for just this year, right? Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, they increased their prices on us this year. I imagine they're going to do that next year as well. They have a policy that it's good for them to raise prices a little bit every year than it is to come with one great big increase. So I expect in the future that we'll always get a little bit of an increase from Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. If nothing else, just for inflation. Let me talk with you about that increase just for a second, in case we haven't talked about this before. Our bill from Jordan Valley actually happens, how they determine what our cost is going to be for the whole year is they take a rolling average of 3 years of our peak hour of the whole year, right? And they divide how much resources it costs to provide that peak hour to everybody in the district. And that's how they charge us. So every time you invest in a tank or something like that, our peak demand goes down for the peak hour. And when I do get a raise from Jordan Valley, a cost increase, it's not as much as you would think. Last year, we were one of the lower raises out of the district. So let's say you were in South Jordan, your raise was more because they needed more in the peak hour than we did because of the improvements that we made. Let me tell you about another thing that happened this year that's going to affect us that at some point we're going to have to talk about. I take water from Zone 1 from Jordan Valley. Most of our water comes from our Zone 1 connections, and I pump it uphill to pressure Zone 6. To do that, I use motors and electricity. Rocky Mountain Power came out this summer and said, we're going to increase everybody's bills by 18%. Well, you can imagine how that's going to affect my utility, right? They're still negotiating that down. I don't know what the final bill is going to be, but I would be wrong if I told you my electrical bills aren't going up. They are just going to go up. And I don't really control that, so I don't really know what they're going to be. But at some point, right, that will affect me as well. I have seen across the board increases in asphalt costs, in road-based costs and other costs. And I've also seen more breaks this year than I have ever. And so to answer your question, it's very likely that we may come in and say, these are the costs, you know, and our costs are going up. I don't know exactly what that will mean. Over the long haul, I agree with those residents. I would love to find a way so that their bill didn't always have to go up. I don't have that answer today. I don't know when that or where that time would be, to be honest with you.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to say was that's really what this plan is for, is to save our residents money. I'm really hoping the things that we're talking about here are ways to help people to save money on their water bill. So even if our rates go up a little bit, they can save money on their water bill. One of the comments was in planning commission, was from a planning commissioner. He had a problem with his water heater. So something had broken inside his house in his water heater. So water was leaking through that water heater and going out of their house. And he got a call from our utility billing department. And he was so grateful because he wasn't home and he sent somebody over there. They found the leak and everything. And it saved him not just money, but damage to his house and stuff like that, right? Those are programs I'm hope will save people money. I'm also hoping that if we can help people monetize and take out turf. I've done that at my house and my bill has gone down from the city because instead of using 40,000 gallons on a summer month, I'm using 30,000 gallons or something like that. So I know my bill has gone down because I have removed turf and changed my watering habits, right? That's really what I'm hoping to do, is save people a little bit money through this plan. That's our goal.
Thank you. I'll save my comments till after the public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I believe Councilmember Bloom has some questions. Do you want to
Yeah,
facilitate
she
those?
texted me some questions that I'll ask verbatim for inclusion in the minutes. And those questions, I have three questions. The first one is that she asked, did we look into business and HOA good water neighbor program that was discussed in past work sessions?
I do want to do something like that. That's why we have the goal of reducing that private HOA non-turf area. I don't have specifics as to how we would do that. I think that would be better for me to come back during a budget session because that might include costs. And in this meeting, I'm really trying to avoid a specific cost for a program. I'm just trying to set some goals.
Okay, second question she asked, are there any anticipated changes to existing water usage restrictions for residential or commercial properties, and how will those be phased in?
This plan doesn't have any future restrictions, but we could be there. I won't, when we up our contract with Jordan Valley Water, they usually ask me to do something. I wouldn't be surprised if the next time I do that they're going to be asking for something more. But I don't have anything today in this proposal that places any restrictions on private businesses or residents.
Thank you. And the third question, how will the city measure the success of this updated plan? And are there penalties or incentives in place to encourage compliance?
Wow, those are all really good questions. There is nothing here to punish somebody who doesn't conserve water except for the tier rate structure. So if you wanted to use more water, then you're just going to have to pay for that. I do hope that there are incentives that Jordan Valley offers, and I do hope someday we have some programs that I bring to council that involves maybe some funding that also encourages others to conserve. I think the way we gauge this, how we're being a success, is if we can keep our gallons per capita day under 170. And if we can use our existing water resources and not have to go and ask for additional water resources as our city develops. So I think both those goals are things we can measure. And we can also measure the turf removal goals as well. Okay.
Excellent. Any further questions before we open a public hearing? All right, I am not seeing any right now. Greg, thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this. If you'd like to address the council on conserving water and the plans to do so, this is your time. Go ahead and open it up to anybody in the room. Nobody in the room. Mr. Anderson, is there anybody online who is seemingly chomping at the electronic bit to speak?
Chair, there is only one person online and they have not raised their hand.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for comments, discussion, and motions. Councilmember Whitelock.
Thank you. These are the things I want to share. On page 23, where it talks about the Flip the Strip program, I really think we need to include that it doesn't apply if you water by hand, because I was very disappointed when Ms. B informed me that because I'm already 25% more efficient than my neighbors that have a sprinkling system, I didn't qualify. So since that's the rule, I think we should have that there so that if anyone's reading that, they don't get surprised. I also want to, as I continue to say, I'm sorry, I think it's great to conserve water, but if all we do is take out grass and put in rock, we are just creating a different problem for our ecosystem. We are creating heat islands, and we are going to change what this valley is like, and it won't be for the better. The last one, and I'm still debating on how I'm going to vote on this, because I feel like since I've been here, we just keep growing government. Yes, our population has increased a little, but not leaps and bounds since I've been here, but our staff has. And while I love that we're looking for a grant to hire a conservation specialist, grants are short-term solutions to long-term issues. And unless there's a guarantee that this person is going to be hired with a grant and let go when the grant is gone, I can't support that. And so while I really appreciate the work that Mr. Davenport has done, and I agree that we need to conserve water, as it is, I'm struggling to say yes to this plan. Because quite frankly, I don't know how much good a conservation specialist in our city. We already have the conservation garden. We already have Jordan Valley who does all that work. So, and when I look at this, I look at it with the eyes of, okay, what do we know? We know the legislature is also looking at water because we have a major lake in our vicinity that is running out of water. So then if they see that in here, are they going to bind us to it? Maybe. So I'm concerned. Thank you.
Any further discussion, comments, questions, motions? Councilmember Green.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance 2457, adopting the updated water conservation plan.
And I'll go ahead and second that. Any discussion to the motion? I'm not seeing any discussion. We'll go ahead and roll call vote.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes, it'll have to come from budget, and then I'll say no.
Councilmember Bloom
Yes.
and Chair Jacob.
Yes.
Thank you. I show the motion passes 6-0.
Okay, I'm glad you got that because I wasn't sure what Councilmember Whitelock's vote was. All right, let's go on to the next item is public hearing E. This is ordinance 24-59. amending the West Jordan City Code, Section 1354, replacing newly annexed territories with annexations of real property into the city, et cetera, will go to Duncan Murray.
This ordinance is both a cleanup and an anticipation of pending applications and additional near future applications that will come before you, including at your January 14th council meeting. Just so that you know, there is one large annexation. I think you're aware of the 700 plus homes, Ochre Highlands or Highland Bluffs annexation that will be coming for you to accept their annexation petition at your January 14th meeting. It's also anticipated that a smaller Copper Meadows annexation petition will come before you to be accepted. And by accepted in each of these instances, I mean to accept it to start the process. And then over a several week process, then it would culminate in potentially an ordinance where you would approve those annexations or consider approval. What we wanted to do is to have the code updated and organized, especially for subsequent petitions that come in. One of the challenges we've had, and part of this, the reason for this city code text amendment, is to be consistent with state code. It used to be in state code years ago that the actual annexation process itself had to go through planning commission and then to the council. Current state code, it just goes straight to the council. But with each annexation petition, there is also a secondary process of applying and approving a zoning map designation and a future land use map designation to the annexed property, which is a separate process, which does require the planning commission. So, and those two processes in a perfect world come to you as a council at the same time. So there's some timing issues of when a petition is filed, when the planning commission looks at the zoning and future land use map, so that both of those applications ideally come to you at the same time for final approval. So the idea is that potentially at your February 25th or subsequent meetings, you would have in both of those cases, those applications, Ochre Highlands and Copper Meadows, come for you for ordinances for final approval of both the annexation petitions and the zoning and future land use map amendments, which similar to like when an MDA is approved by you as a council, subsequent to the sole discretion of the council approving a map amendments ordinance, the same kind of process occurs with annexations where you could potentially approve of a annexation petition subject to your subsequent approval of the zoning and land use map amendments. That gives you hopefully an idea of the processes coming forward to you in the next couple of months. Like I say, back to this city code text amendment, what we're trying to say is if we have anything in our city code that's not consistent with current state law, we're not going to impose that on ourselves. And the one thing we're fully aware of that the Planning Commission does have to be involved with is the zoning and future land use map amendments. But we're making it clear that they're not involved in the regular annexation petition process. Then there's two subsections here. If you see in the, because we have the actual ordinance, then there's the actual red lines provisions and then the clean text. You'll see in the red line, we pretty much deleted the current section and replaced it because there's so many, it's just cleaner. And the main reason is we're making a little distinction between new development and existing development. And what we mean by that is the Copper Meadows annexation petition, that's property hasn't been developed yet, right? The Ochre Highlands is built out. It's got 700-800 houses on it. And so there's some slight distinctions there. So we broke it out into those two different subsections. So basically it's a cleanup bill or cleanup ordinance, making it consistent with state code. And then, like I say, making sure that we don't, that we have something that's easier for the public to understand, and that our staff understands what the processes are, so that we can bring these applications to you in a timely and an efficient way. Any questions?
I actually have one, and we'll go to Councilmember Green. Section A on the new code says application submitted to the city on or after December 18th, which is today. I'm just wondering, have we received an application today that would qualify under this code, yet this code hasn't been approved yet?
No.
Okay, just wanted to see if that was, there's a small little loophole in here. All right, Mr. Green, Councilmember Green.
Well, what I was going to ask is there's both sections have a date in it. And it seems like every time we put something in ordinance with a date, we have the afternoon on January 6th of 2020 or whatever the heck it was when we changed form of government. And we never go back and remove those, because at some point in time, the date goes away and
Right, and they no longer have any value.
and we don't have to. So here's my question is, in both A and B, do we have to have that date in there? Can we pull the dates out and add those to the ordinance that's not going to be codified, so that we're just, because we haven't had any applications really, we don't have any applications that it came in today, right? And then there's an effective date.
Well, there is technically the Copper Meadows annexation, the small 1.3 acres, 38 acres. They have filed a notice of intent to annex, and they've done some of their early processes. They're technically not going to file their application until the next week or so. And so what I didn't want to do is leave any ambiguity. I wanted to see that that's, application would in fact apply to, this ordinance would apply to that application. So the December 18th date in my mind is an important date. Like you say, maybe it could have just been put in the ordinance language rather than in the codified text itself. But I think it's important, because what I wouldn't want to see is a glitch where the current statute or the current ordinance applies, and then we've put ourselves in a situation where the Planning Commission should have done something that they didn't. So basically it's the effective date today, right? Is the December 18th if you approve of it.
Right, but the ordinance actually takes effect after the mayor signs it or whatever.
Right, and that, hence my concern there too. What if the petition comes in and then the mayor signs it after, but we can put in the ordinance that it's still effective? There's a lot of dates that are all in quick succession.
But in the ordinance, we can establish the effective date when we pass it, right?
Yeah, you could put it in the ordinance language instead of in the codified text.
Yeah, I'm just concerned to having dates in here, because I don't know, it just seems like it muddies the water, because because the problem is we never go back and clean it up, right?
Right.
And so.
Yeah, and the part of a lot of this is timing, right? There's a lot of timing involved. One of the parts of the state law that's the annexation main statutory section 10-2-403 says that the council has to hear the annexation or look at accepting the annexation petition within 14 days after it's filed. And so that's why the applicant is probably going to wait till January 2nd to officially file the petition itself, because we don't have another council meeting until January 14th.
Yeah.
So there's some curious, timing issues we're stuck with by state law.
Right. I get that.
But note taken, I probably should have put it in the ordinance and not in this.
And so what I'm just suggesting
codified.
is, because I don't want to delay this tonight, but what I'm suggesting is we shouldn't let this wait for 3 years before we decide to remove the deadlines.
Yeah, so we'll,
And if there's a way that we can make this effective and then we come back here in a few weeks with the dates deleted so that we know where we're at, then that cleans it up for me. So
we'll at a minimum then, we'll take note of it and make sure that it's on a schedule to remove those dates when we do our next changes in this part of the code. Points well taken. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, thank you. Again, due to Councilmember Bloom's voice, she's asked 4 questions.
Oh,
Mr. Murray, don't go too soon.
Don't go away yet.
So her 4 questions on the annexation, and I'm reading this verbatim from a text she sent me. How will this change impact the efficiency of the annexation process for both the city and developers? Explain a little on the process. That's question 1.
Yeah, so, it removes that unnecessary step that's not required by state law of having to go to the Planning Commission for the actual annexation petition process, right? So the Planning Commission would only hear the zoning map and future land use map amendments. So that's the one point that it streamlines. I think part of the goal of a city code, a good city code, is to make it clear and easy for the public to understand. I think this updated version of the code will make it easier for the public when they read it to understand what it means. So.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2, how will the ordinance affect the city's approach to new developments that require annexation? Will developers face any new challenges or delays due to the ordinance change?
No, and like I say, as a follow-up to my last response, if anything, it streamlines it, makes it quicker. There's one less step. And like I say, I think it's not just the code itself, it's our processes. And the processes that we're implementing in the recorder's office and with the community development are to pull the 2 processes together as much as possible so that both the annexation petition and the zoning and future land use map amendments come to the council at the same time.
Okay, thank you. The 3rd question, 2 more to go. 3rd and 4th. Will there be any potential cost savings for the city as a result of streamlining the annexation process?
Yes, and one of those we've worked on over the last couple of weeks between the council office with Cindy Quick, Tangi and Alex in the recorder's office, Julie in community development, and myself. For this large annexation process, Ochre Highlands, there are actually 1,200 or so, 1,300 notices that have to go out. And actually, because of a glitch in state law, we'll probably have to send out closer to 1,500 because we're sending to not just the property owners, but also the property addresses. Due to some of the provisions in the noticing statute. And that's an expensive process to mail out that many notices. And there's actually 3 sets of notices. There's the Planning Commission public hearing for Ochre Highlands for the map amendments. Then there's the council public hearing for the map amendments. And then there are notifications that have to go out for the annexation petition, 3 sets of notices. So by coordinating between staff, we're going to put all 3 sets of notice into one envelope and send it to everyone. And the everyone is those that are in the annexation area, those that are within 300 feet of the annexation area that live in whose properties are in West Jordan or West Valley, and then within a half mile in the unincorporated area. And then those notices will go out all in one set of envelopes. So, I mean, when your cost of mailing is $1,000, you don't want to do it 3 times. So, or more than 1,000. So I think, like I say, this is more than just a text amendment. This has been a process of coordinating staff between departments. And I think it's also not just a cost savings. I think it's better for those receiving the notice, the property owners, the affected entities and so forth, because instead of them getting 3 different envelopes and, oh, here's this public hearing for the planning commission. Oh, here's the one for the council. Oh, what's this other one for the council? Oh, that's for the petition instead of the map amendments. And then they get confused. They get them all in one envelope. Okay, we got these series of hearings, this one here, this one there, this one for this purpose. I think it's good that in addition to just the code, we looked at streamlining the process for better noticing to the public and cost savings.
Okay, last question. Are there any concerns about removing this layer of oversight in annexations, especially for more complex developments?
I don't see that there's any oversight being removed. I guess maybe that's in reference to the Planning Commission no longer weighing in on the annexation process. It's not a land use decision. I think the zoning and land use map amendments are. And so, like I say, it's more to, I don't think we're taking anything away from the Planning Commission that's really within their purview, especially under state law. But if anything, I think we're adding more potential layers of safety and oversight because, like I say, especially between coordinating the offices, Cindy Quick's going to review everything when it's ready to go out. Cora's office is going to review everything. Julie and Community Development's going to review everything. I'm going to review everything. We're going to have at least 5 sets of eyes on everything. So anyway, that's how I would perceive it. I think we're actually, without bogging down the process, we're actually adding more oversight in the sense of making sure it's done properly.
All right, thanks. Any further questions for staff before the public hearing? All right, thank you, Duncan. Seeing no further questions from the council, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody who'd like to address the council on this topic of annexation, et cetera, that we're discussing now, go ahead and come on up. Or indicate your desire online. Guys are troopers, I tell you. All right, anybody online, Mr. Anderson, who wishes to speak?
Chair, there are 3 individuals online, none of whom have raised their hand.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring us back to council for discussion and motions. Councilmember Green.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance number 24-59.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Whitelock. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton.
Yes.
Thank you. I show the motion passes 6-0.
Perfect. And last but not least, for public hearings, not for the rest of the business of the night. We have public hearing 5F on the agenda, ordinance 24-58, amending the West Jordan City Code titles 2, 8, 10, 13, 14, and 15 regarding land use appeal authority. And I have Patrick's name on this one, Mr. Boyce.
Hello again. This is with regards to our Board of Adjustment. We have a 5-member Board of Adjustment who's served diligently for many years, done a great job. We discussed in a committee of the whole the idea of moving that from a 5-member layperson board to a single-member administrative law judge to make those decisions That was the direction that the council wanted to go. And so we brought back some code revisions to incorporate that into the code. The titles, Title 2 is really where the magic happens, but 8, 10, 13, 14, 15 all referenced the Board of Adjustment. And so we changed it. We went from Board of Adjustment to Land Use Appeal Authority, which kind of encapsulated in a generic term what we're planning to do. What this also does, though, and just so you know, all of these, sorry, not all of them, but the majority of them dealt with provisions that were needing to go to the Planning Commission. So this did go to the Planning Commission, and they've sent it through to you with their recommendation. But the Land Use Appeal Authority is vague enough that if you wanted to maybe redefine what Land Use Appeal Authority means in the future, you could do that again years down the road without having to go back in and change, 6 different titles within the code and make this many changes on it. So Board of Adjustment was kind of an antiquated word that maybe needed to be updated anyway. So this was a good opportunity to do that.
Thank you for the introduction. Any questions for staff on this? We've got a couple, I think, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, this is from Councilmember Bloom, who texted it to me. This is what she asked verbatim. What is the expected timeline for implementing this change? How soon would the administrative law judge begin handling appeals, and will there be a transition period where both systems coexist for some time?
Yes, yes, and no. No, I can't remember the order. I would say, yes, they will. It'll start immediately, right? We wanted to bring this to the council before the end of the year so that 2025 starts using the ALJ process. We have an ALJ, Judge Newman, that has been handling our ALJ services. We'll need to look and see if this is something that's covered under his current contract. But it is something that we would expect that he'd be able to handle on some of this stuff. Is there a transition where both of them would coincide? No, that's not what's expected at all. If the council decides to act tonight, it would take effect and would start in January. I don't know of any pending variance applications or appeals that have been brought forward, so I don't think there's anything pressing. But it would start January 1, 2025 with what we need to do.
Okay, Council, Mr. Langford indicated there are no pending issues before the Board of Adjustment. Second question, will there be any changes to the scope of authority or types of appeals that can be made to the administrative law judge versus the Board of Adjustment?
No.
That is all.
Perfect. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Councilmember Green.
An attorney that answered a question with the 2-letter word, what is wrong with you?
It's a new brave era, Councilmember Green.
Brave. It's a whole new world.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. We'll go ahead and go to the public hearing on this. Anybody like to address the council on the Land Use Authority in the city of West Jordan? Land Use Appeal Authority, mind you. Land Use Authority still is the same. This would be your opportunity to come up to the microphone. Assuming he's walking out, not walking up. Okay. Mr. Anderson, any online who seem to want to address this?
Thank you, Chair. There are 3 individuals online, none of whom have raised their hand.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and close the public hearing, then bring this back to the council for discussions or motions.
I'll hit my button
Councilmember
first.
Green.
Move to approve ordinance number 24-58.
Councilmember Shelton.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Shelton. Is there discussion to the motion? Councilmember Shelton.
I'd just like to speak. I think we're all in favor of this already, but I'd just like to say the thing that really tipped me over and really wanting to support this was the thought that these are very complicated situations that can come before a lay group of people who are scantily trained in some, And sometimes you get all the training you need. I remember being on the planning commission and receiving training and having half of it just kind of going over my head because that's beyond my scope of understanding in some cases. And so this Board of Adjustment, I think facing the difficult decisions and complicated situations that sometimes they have to face, it's better done by the judge. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, let's vote.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton.
Yes.
I show the motion passes 6-0.
Perfect. That is all of the public hearings. Thank you so much for all the public who commented on all the public hearings. We had 1 out of 6 public hearings, 1 comment. We'll go quickly through the business items here, hopefully, because we got Christmas shopping to do, people. Business item 6A, ordinance 24-12. This is an amendment to the Jones Ranch Master Development Agreement. And we're going to go per our procedural things to the applicant, Mr. Dinsdale. That's who I have on here from Ivory Development.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you guys letting me come back. You have to excuse me. I think, whatever Pamela has, I think I had 3 weeks ago and still got this lingering cough and it's not fun. Also, I just want to let you all know, I had the chance to talk to Mayor Burton about his love for Christmas. And just want to say there's one person in here I think that loves Christmas more than him, and it's me. So I was born on Christmas many years ago. So I tell people they cancel half a church if it's on my birthday sometimes, which is great. So anyway, yeah, hopefully you guys got the updated packet. It's very similar to what we talked about, but with a few changes. A couple of the main changes were that it references building permits now. There's a schedule in there so you can kind of see the timing of when improvements will happen. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Questions or discussion, Councilmember Shelton?
Can you speak about what led to these delays a little bit?
Well, I guess to be clear, it wasn't not necessarily a delay, really. So, the development agreement was approved years ago, and the timing of the pool and clubhouse was committed to 200 and 400 units, and it's not uncommon, honestly, when we do a big development agreement that encompasses 500 or so acres and almost 3,000 units that we're off in what we project in the timing. And so as we sat down and put together an actual plan for the pool and clubhouse, found out, how long it would take us to build the infrastructure to that site and how long it would actually take to build the clubhouse. That's when we realized we needed to ask that, it can be at the same time and at about 300 units so that it's a realistic timeline.
So I got the impression that a big reason you can't do it at the original time was that because of the road needing to be built. Is that correct?
That's true. So Jones Ranch Drive, which will connect between 90th South and 8600 South, needs to be constructed because the utilities for the clubhouse site will come through that road. And yeah, now that we have a better schedule and idea of how long that construction will take, now we have much better assumptions to let us know when we can have the clubhouse built.
And this last question may be a little strange, but I want to ask it. Can you can you tell me that the new timeline you're proposing is the best you can do?
So the one, Pamela asked me a similar question. And the one thing that we can change, our construction timeline for the clubhouse is pretty well set. Our group has done it a lot. They know how long it takes to construct. The one area where we potentially have some flexibility is with the construction of Jones Ranch Drive. We're starting the construction of 8600 South this coming year. And if we can get Jones Ranch Drive reviewed and approved quickly enough, we'll start that as soon as we can. And as soon as that is done, one of the things we've talked about is maybe rather than waiting until it's fully complete, as soon as it's built to where it provides the utilities to the clubhouse site, then we could start on the clubhouse site. It's hard to know until we have those plans fully reviewed and approved by the city. And we don't have that yet, but we do have them designed and ready to be submitted to the city. So we should know here within the next month or so, we'll have a better idea of the timing on the construction of that road. But that's one thing we could push for, is to get that constructed sooner to bump up the construction of the clubhouse.
All right. I just want to say I did speak with a resident who lives out there, Chris McConaughey. He said you've been great in communicating with him. And although he doesn't like the delays, he understands the reasons for them. And so I appreciate your efforts.
Thanks.
Mr. Anderson, I assume we got some questions from.
I don't have any questions for Ms. Bloom, as she already had asked those of the developer. Just a couple items just for the council to ponder. This came to you in a public hearing on August 27th. The council bifurcated the approval of the sub-area plan with this provision, this amendment, to tie in a commencement and a conclusion of the pool clubhouse and to bring it back to you by December 31st of this year. So that's why this is to you today.
Because we have 13 days until December 31st of this year, and I frankly don't want any more meetings. Councilmember Bador.
I just want to say I appreciate this over, I know last time you were here, we kind of laid into you a little bit for that. This is what makes it better. If we get the right information, we aren't going to be able to get it done by 200, and can we work together to get something that is a much more preferred way of doing the business than the way we felt it was happening last time. So I just want to let you know there's a reason why we're much nicer this time. And
Okay.
so just keep that in mind. It's always best to just give us all the information so that we can work off of that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Green.
And I'm good with this. I think I was good with it last time, but I'm good with this. You're gonna, you're talking about 300 homes in a development that's gonna have 3,000. My opinion is, you're selling properties and selling homes in the area on a basis that they're gonna have a clubhouse and a pool, and if you don't do it, you face their wrath, and that's worse than ours. So I'm good with this. I'm a yes. So, but thanks for your patience and bringing this back. Thank you.
I'm going to take a slightly different tact. And gosh, I hate to do this, but the concerns I had 4 months ago when we talked about this, I still have. There's still no, you're taking out an obligation to substantially complete something by a certain milestone and not replacing it. There is no obligation in here to actually build anything with that 301st development or 301st building certificate. What it says is that you will, the expectation or that your obligation now is going to be to submit plans that shall be reviewed and approved by the city and have a pre-construction meeting. That's all you're obligating yourself to by this 301st thing. And said, now you got some things, it'll be at least 5,000 square feet, yada, yada. But then you have an expected duration of 18 months of construction and anticipated completion date. Those are not expected, and anticipated don't mean anything. Oh, well, we expected it to be 18 months, but it turned out to be 6 years. I'm sorry, you know. But I didn't violate anything because it doesn't say I'm obligated to 18 months. It just, or substantially complete by 18 months. It just said expected and anticipated by October 2027, but it was October 2037. Sorry. We anticipated wrong, whatever. And yeah, Councilmember Green's got a good point. You face the wrath of the people out there, and that is not to be discounted. But again, we're taking out a substantially complete requirement and replacing it with submit your plans. A does not equal B here. So I can't vote for this yet until we have a substantially complete in there again. If you want to change out and says shall be substantially complete by October 2027, I'm a go. Or 18 months after it starts. It shall be substantially complete by 18 months after it starts. I'm okay with that. That's not what it says. So this has a loophole that I can drive a truck through. And so I'm still not in favor of the wording that we've kind of come to on this. So I'll just leave that. Go ahead.
That would be a good suggestion if the wording was that, construction will commence it. Then the reason so in speaking with Chris McConaughey, I said, hey, we'll start at 300. And he said, well, what does start mean? And so, I'm like, well, at the city, when you have a pre-construction meeting, that's the official start. The city's approved the plans. And he said, yeah, why don't we put that in there rather than just say start? It sounds like maybe it sounds a little more complicated, but yeah, I would be totally happy to say that, when we commence or have that pre-construction meeting, that we will be substantially complete within 18 months. That, we could commit to that. The only reason that there's not a hard date in there is, some things are out of our control with the economy, if we sell things more quickly or slowly. But yeah, once we do start, we can commit to substantial completion with 18 months. And that would be totally fine to add if you guys are willing to amend it and add that wording.
So if let me just restate and see if I understand. If we left it as start being what you just said and what's in here, pre-construction meeting and plans are reviewed and approved, and then completed within or substantially completed within 18 months from that time, not from some other nebulous start, like as in actually turning dirt or something.
Yeah.
I would be okay with that as well. So appreciate that. Right. Okay, I'll go ahead and make the motion. I will move to approve then the loophole-less version. This is ordinance 24-12 with the following edit. I'll try and make this as clean as possible. In section 2, under new provision to be substituted in its place, the sentence that says the expected duration of construction is 18 months, they'll say that it is replaced with the clubhouse or the clubhouse and pool amenity shall be substantially completed within 18 months from, the other date. And I'll let staff write that the right way, but that's the gist. Councilmember Shelton.
Second.
All right, so a motion from Councilmember Jacob, seconded by Councilmember Shelton. Is there discussion to that motion? I appreciate your flexibility on that, by the way. Councilmember Green.
No, I'm not sure I like amending an MDA from the dais.
More than one sentence.
What's that?
Said if it was more than one sentence, I'd agree with you, but it's just one sentence.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think. I think.
I'm not sure it makes that much difference. The-
I hope-
the- the
I hope you're
loophole-
right.
The loophole that you claim isn't gonna happen. I think the intent of this is to do this in 18 months when they say they do it, and then I don't know. Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, I'm seeing no further discussion. Let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Thank you. I show the motion passes 6-0.
All right,
Thank you. And thank you for helping us iron that out and
Yeah.
solidifying that in there. I appreciate that very much. Okay, resolution 24-039, appointing a member to serve on the South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District Board for 4 years. Mr. Anderson.
Yes, thank you, council. So going back through our city archives, we are to the time where we need to reappoint a member to serve on the South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District. The district is governed by State Law 17B-2A-704, and the responsibility of that position, because it is a county-wide greater than the boundaries of West Jordan City, because every city has a seat, falls to the governing body, City Council. Our own city code 1614 governs the appointment of council representatives and liaisons to external organizations. This would be a 4-year term per their bylaws. And the current individual is Gene Drake. He's been serving, I visited with him last week with the mayor. We stopped by his home and visited with him. I thanked him for his service because my understanding is the council would like to make a change there. He had a plaque there that was, I think, 25 years of service on the board. The records that I went back, his 3 terms, and this is the end of the 12 years that I researched back. There's an interesting provision in 17B2A section of code in that at the end of 4 years, the seat is automatically deemed vacant, but the individual can continue to serve until the legislative body makes a new appointment. So I can see resolutions where he was appointed the 2 previous times, but in 2020, when we changed the form of government, he should have come before the council in December of 2020. We did not do that. I don't know if it's because he wasn't tracked or we didn't have all that data there, the change in form of government, COVID, electronic meetings. There were a lot of things happening in 2020. So the seat was deemed vacant, but he could continue to serve in the seat, which he has done. I've reached out to the executive director of the South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District and visited with him. The Mosquito Abatement District is a taxing authority, and there is a desire, it's not a requirement, but there's a desire that it be an elected official. When you look at the board members of the mosquito abatement, most of them are mayors or city council members, not all of them. So tonight, what's being asked of the council is to select a member of the elected body, one of you, to serve as a representative on the Mosquito Abatement District, much like with the Jordan Valley Water. This one does not need governor's appointment or advice and consent of the Senate. So the meetings are the second Monday each month at 2 p.m., generally virtual, but sometimes they do meet in person. So what we're asking for tonight is just for the council to decide on someone who would be able to serve among either the 7 of you or including the mayor, just one of the elected officials. And then I should point out that we will work with the mayor and Mr. Lee and Mr. Jerome for some sort of recognition after the first of the year with Mr. Drake. We'll bring him here or to an event that we can thank him for his many years of service to the city.
All right, thank you. I have a question. Does this need to be done by the end of the year specifically? Or do we have a timeframe on this?
If you do nothing tonight, then Mr. Drake would continue to serve into January. The first meeting would be the second Monday next month.
Okay, but we could take action in January, for example, just hypothetically, and replace him at that time, just whenever
Yes,
we get
you
to.
can take action in January. Mr. Drake would serve probably for the January meeting because I think the first meeting would be the 13th of January, which is before your next meeting.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. The reason I bring that up is just for the council's information, is I personally, and I made kind of this fuss when we appointed to the Jordan Valley Water Board, is that when it's a taxing entity, I like the person who we put there to be an accountable representative to at least somebody. So either an elected official or something like that. That's my preference. Now, it's not a requirement. Most of the board, I'm just looking at now, most of them I recognize as elected officials, but not all of them, but most of them. And if that's what they prefer, that's definitely what I prefer. That would obviously limit it to 8 people in the room here. Well, 6 in the room and 2 that aren't in the room. I say we nominate Chad. What do you think? He's not here. So that's just my thought on that, is that I think taxing authorities should be responsible to the people that pay the taxes. And as direct a line as possible. And that's the most direct way, but it doesn't have to be that way. Mr. Anderson, did you have something else?
You just mentioned Councilmember Lamb. He's not here this evening, but Councilmember Lamb has expressed interest in serving, just so you're all aware, even though he's not here.
I was totally kidding. Councilmember Whitelock.
That was just going to be my question. Who's interested and available to serve then?
Yeah, and that's obviously my question as well. Does anybody want to comment or throw their hat into the ring?
I'm interested.
Councilmember Green's interested. Councilmember Bador, or Shelton, sorry.
I would,
Saw the
I
reflection.
would be interested in supporting Councilmember Green.
Okay. Councilmember Bador. Mayor, do you have an opinion on this one, since you're in the eligible candidate pool?
If the council wanted me to do it, I'd be happy to do so. But if a council member wants to do that, I'm fine with that as well. I have no strong feelings either way.
Councilmember Whitelock.
I would also support Councilmember Green, just because Councilmember Lamb is in a position in his life where maybe it works now,
Some
but it might
questions.
not in the future.
That's a valid, definitely a valid point. Yeah, the only thing I will point out with Councilmember Green is this is a 4-year term. You only be an elected official for 1 more year guaranteed. You never know what might happen after that.
Yeah, but that didn't stop the appointment of you to the
This
Jordan
is
Valley
true.
Water Conservancy District, because it's the same exact circumstance.
It is the same exact circumstance. You're right. And I just wanted to make sure you were aware that, you might be serving longer than, whatever. Just, we'll see what the future brings. But in this case, I'm okay with Councilmember Green or Councilmember Lamb too. Councilmember Green is here, so you get the edge. So does anybody like to make that motion then? Councilmember Shelton.
I would move to approve resolution number 24039, appointing Councilmember Calvin Green to serve on the South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District Board for 4 years.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Shelton, seconded by Councilmember Whitelock. Any discussion to the motion? I think we have discussed.
I'll just say thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and roll call vote.
Councilmember Green.
Is it self-serving if I say yes?
Say yes.
It's yes.
Councilmember Shelton.
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom.
Yes.
Chair Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Councilmember Bador.
Yes.
Thank you. I show the motion passes 6-0.
Excellent. Moving right on. And by the way, somebody pointed that out when I was appointed to Jordan Valley too. So you're right. I just wanted to be fair. All right. 2431, ordinance 2431, business item 6C, regarding the third amendment to the Bangerter Station Development agreement. And I have applicant Mr. Taylor for this one.
Good evening, City Council. First and foremost, want to thank you all for your time. I know we started this process with the City of West Jordan in March of this year, and we do appreciate the time that you've taken to both in City Council meetings and in the council meeting of the whole that we had in October to discuss Jordan Valley Station and this request to extend the existing development agreement. Based on the council meeting of the whole that we had in October and the feedback that we've had with the city staff in the following months, we have redrafted the third amendment to the development agreement with what we believe to be concessions to the city in response to the extension of 10 years from the current termination date. Outlining these concessions, we have redrafted the agreement to read that upon the effective date of this third amendment, the reduced impact fees that Bangerter Station enjoys currently would terminate immediately, resulting in us reverting back to the standard city fee schedule on the going forward basis for all future developments, and a commitment that will have started the construction of the next building before the September 2029. With this in mind, we appreciate your time again, and I'm available for questions, and we request from City Council tonight to move to approve this motion.
Questions for the applicant or for staff? We have Mr. Dobbins here from staff who can address questions. I have a question, but I'm scrolling back, so I read it in the same way that I emailed it to Mr. Dobbins here. There we go. Okay, so my question is, what happens, and this is more for our staff, what happens if we don't do this? Maybe you can answer from your perspective, and then we can have staff answer from our perspective. If this extension is not granted, yes, we collect less in impact fees in as much as you do something that requires you to pay them. But what else?
That's a good question. I'll let staff answer their part, but from our standpoint on the developer side, we do have in place right now conceptual plans that are working towards. We're in talks with the general contractor, architects, and the third-party operator for the finished product. This follows the phase plan, which would be the plan if we were to extend this agreement out another 10 years, meaning we do sections or unique properties as we go along. If we were to not extend the agreement, our team would have to pivot, and instead of looking at unique properties, doing one by one little bite-sized chunks, I'd have to pivot in this year, given the 5-year timeframe I have, reevaluate the land and do probably a prototypical plan of, the same building that's just replicated across the land. And that's what we provided in that 5-year conceptual plan as not a full-blown layout of what we're going to be doing, but as a concept of what we'd be able to build in the 5-year period. So it would just reduce the quality of the build and make the rest of the land in Jordan Valley Station much more monotonous.
So is that something that you're permitted to do under the current development
Yes.
agreement? You're permitted to take the quality down a notch?
Yes, and by quality, I just mean right now, if you look at the existing buildings, Novi, Upper West Momentum, each asset has been built with, unique color palettes and different architectural elements. We can build another property it still fits the code and it follows what's allowed in the development agreement. It just doesn't allow me to build 6 individual unique buildings. Instead, it's one building replicated 6 times, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Okay, let me go to staff, David or Josh. I don't know who wants to take this.
Yeah, anything they build in the next 5 years would have to comply with the current agreement. We haven't analyzed what they proposed as an alternative to see how it complies with the current requirements, but whether it's amended or not, they still have to build whatever the current agreement requires them to build. So nothing in that regard would change if this didn't get approved tonight.
Right. Okay. Let's go to Councilmember Bedore. Do you have a question for?
So, Mr. Taylor, let me see if I get this right. Your pivoting would be to the plan that you agreed to. So you're saying you're saying you've already made your mind up. You're going to do the other one, but you'll have to pivot back to what you agreed to previously.
No, what I mean by that is, that's a good question. Let me clarify that. What I mean is, if you look at what we built to date, if you just look at Novi, Momentum, Upper West, they all look very distinct from each other. Different build types. In either case, we're still going to build the units that we've agreed to build and that we're planning to build. All that changes is instead of building these little tiny pocket communities within the larger community that all have their own feel and distinguished characteristics, I'm going to build we'd have to build a larger complex that would still hit our units counts and still get all the agreed to, it'd be built to the agreed to code. It would just be more monotonous in the fact that each building would be the exact same building, just replicated.
So which one of these plans was in your original 2029 plan?
Our original plan was continue to do phase development going forward.
To your
Do unique buildings going forward.
Okay, so I'm still confused. Your original plan was always to ask for more time, or your original plan was to build different unique looking buildings?
Our original plan was to create unique buildings. It's just been delayed due to economic factors. We face the same delays with construction costs and market downturns. And so we're coming up to the end of the term. And so we can do the other option and do replicated buildings. We just feel it's beneficial to the community and to the city to do more unique assets.
So my question would be, or maybe a statement that I'm asking for something from you. Put this in my mind so it doesn't sound like you're making a threat to the city that if you don't extend us, we're just going to build ugly looking buildings. Please make that so it doesn't come across like a threat of that to me.
I don't think it was not meant to be a threat. I think what we're trying to say is we like how Jordan Valley Station to date has been built with little pocket communities. We believe, and I think the council members, you may agree when you walk through the site, that seeing Novi and Momentum and Upper West and how they play against each other, and they're different, and there's a different demographic. Like, for instance, Novi is a lot more families, while Upper West is a lot more, I'd say middle-aged professionals in the workplace. It just builds to a better community aspect. We still build quality project going forward. It would just be less catered to little pocket communities within the larger community. And so I wouldn't be able to attract different demographics. I wouldn't be able to attract a more diverse community within the larger community.
Interesting. Any further comments? Councilmember Bloom has some comments that I hear she wants to make herself.
I'm gonna try. Oh, hold on. Oh, where did my notes just go? Okay. Now, given the extended timeline, what guarantees can the city receive to make sure that, this continued development moves forward and is not delayed or scaled back any more than it already is? Could you hear me?
I think I could. I think I'm a little hard hearing on my left side, so I'm just trying to figure out where the voice is coming from. If I understand right, you're asking, if I can just address the question, you're asking what guarantees can we provide that we continue developing the project?
Yeah, to keep it moving forwards and not have any more delays or scaled back any further.
Understood. I think from the developer's standpoint, and I can speak for our company on this point, we as a developer, we're in the business of developing the product. It does me no good to have the land sit there vacant. I know we addressed before the agreements we have in place with the RDA, but those don't actually come into effect and we don't gain any of those subsidies unless that land is developed. And so we have on our side a great urgency to get this land developed and moving along. I burn through, or our company burns through a lot of money just carrying the land with the financing we have on it right now. Our motivation is to complete the project and get this moving along.
And then beyond the impact fees, are there other financial commitments or incentives that you guys are offering to the city, such as private-public partnerships or infrastructure contributions that I may have missed in reading my homework? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We initially had initial infrastructure. How do you say that? When we initially did the project, we, as a developer and our partnership with Bangerter Station, we paid for the infrastructure for all the public utilities, a mile and a half of sewer, the inroads, the landscaping, the public parking garages for UTA's track station, and for many millions of dollars. At this point, we're offering to remove the reduced concession, or not the concession, to remove the reduced impact fees going forward on top of everything we've done to date. Does that answer your question?
I think so, a little bit. And then for staff, has there, and you too, has there been any public concerns regarding the development that should be addressed during the meeting?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and then is there a comprehensive update on how the development will impact existing infrastructure, and if there are any plans to address those needs proactively?
We haven't analyzed it. Assuming that it gets built the way it was proposed, we assume the same impacts would be what they were initially.
Okay, and is there anything from the city council that we're not thinking of that to help move this forward and make this, a continued positive project?
So just to make sure that I'm clear, the commitment is an additional 10 years. So it'd be from today, essentially 15 years. And their commitment is to have one additional building constructed during the next 15 years. That's the commitment that they've made.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Okay, I'm gonna make some comments here. One, I'm looking at the master development agreement, and it's got 3 provisions. Provision number 1, road and infrastructure, complete the installations described in the development agreement. That's not a concession or anything, because you're already under obligation to do it, and you've already refused to do it and trying to get out of it by saying, well, we need more traffic studies and all that other stuff, when the original MDA specifically said that our traffic engineer warranted what needed to be. And so that particular provision has no force, means nothing, because you're already under that obligation. 2, the impact fees. You've agreed to pay the increased impact fees, but if we let this development agreement expire, and you don't get the stuff done by 2029, you're going to pay the new impact fees anyway. And 3, I'm not sure that I know of an development agreement in this city or most any other place that goes for 29 years. The original development agreement was originally signed in 2010 with promises made about how the TOD was going to be a model TOD. Well, I'm going to be blunt with you, the model TOD has failed. There's only one, maybe 2 TODs that have actually been successful, Farmington Station and maybe Fairborn Station. The front runner station at South Jordan, maybe. This was supposed to be a model TOD, and you guys made a promise that you'd have it done in 15 years. And what I think is ironic is that the developer stands up and says, we want to make this project, but we want to make it, and it's going to take another 10 years to do it. And And the way that you get the good product is another 10 years to do it. I had concerns last time, still not been addressed. I have problems with an MDA that says that, and by the way, and I'll hit this one as well. The MDA said that you guys would be the substantial developer in the entire TOD. And I have concerns with that. There's other pieces of property in the TOD, and how are they affected? Not just the ones that are there because the way the TOD is written. I still have concerns over the Jordan Line Parkway maintenance. The developer was supposed to pay for the maintenance for the city. We've heard nothing on how that's occurred, and I'll continue to push for that all the way through the budget season. Typically, when we have an MDA, and I will point this out, typically when we have an MDA, all the parties to the MDA have to sign it before it comes here. I will note for the record that Utah Transit Authority has not executed this MDA, so we don't even know if MDA buys off on this, UTA buys off on this MDA. So I'm going to be a no tonight. There's too many issues, too many things that just don't work. So I'm going to be a no tonight on this. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Whitelock and then we'll go to Corbin.
Okay, here's what I have to share. According to our Utah legislature and many of the think tanks around, we need units now. And we could have used these units when they were supposed to be completed for the first time. The only thing you're promising is one more building with your third extension on an MDA. That doesn't sit well for me. And you brought up the RDA. That affects not just our city, but also Jordan School District, because that's hanging over their heads and you're asking for another extension to keep that hanging over their heads. They need the money yesterday, not in 15 years. The adjoining community, there was a question, I think, by Councilmember Bloom, if we've heard any complaints. I actually have, from the neighborhood to the west of there, about why did they build those buildings with their ugly mechanical stuff facing our houses. When this community was first announced to the greater community, they were told it was going to be a mixed use. And in fact, when I first joined the council, I was told it was going to be a mixed use. I don't think anyone considered it a mixed use. And the last time that you were here and spoke with us, that is not the intent, to my understanding. So I feel like you've had enough time if you wanted to, and the time when we needed those units was 10 years ago. In 15 years from now, we may not need them any longer, and you'll still be entitled to build them, and then they'll be overbuilt. And I can tell you what happened in Salt Lake, where they overbuilt. They're not subsidized housing because they couldn't get enough full price renters. And that concerns me. Not that having subsidized housing is a bad thing, but that's not what you're promoting this area to be. What you're promoting it to be and what you've said you would do, when we asked you to come back with something, you didn't come back with enough that will benefit the city. So for those reasons, I will have to be a no.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one point of clarification, follow-up. At the work session when this issue was discussed, there was a question about whether Mr. Vitek's company had been paying the landscape maintenance fees. We went back and confirmed they have been paying those.
Thank you for that. I'm going to just chime in as well. My biggest issue with this is not the asking for more time. It's not the slower pace of development. It's not the intersections being completed or not being completed. It's, we asked for some specific things to be brought back and they weren't. Now, we put this on the agenda for tonight at the request of the developer. That's what I do, in case you missed that. There was a news story on it last week. We put this on the agenda for tonight because the developer requested a decision before the end of the year on this for their own purposes. Fine, I don't have a problem with that. And I'm happy to accommodate you with a vote, even if you don't like the vote, because in this situation, we specifically asked at that meeting in, I think it was October, right? That bring us back an example of what you could do with an extension, what you would do without an extension. Show me, give me something to look at. I don't have anything to look at. Bring it forward. Bring me, show me what I'm asked to make a decision on. Right now, I don't have a compelling reason to say yes. That's just where I am right now. A few years ago, when I was on the council, several years ago, we had an amendment to our contract with Waste Management. Now, totally separate deal, right? But it's a contract between the city and somebody else. And they were coming to request a change in recyclables. You remember this? It was ACE, sorry, not Waste. It was not Waste Management, it was ACE because we didn't use Waste Management. I voted no on that one. But they came to us with a request to change their contract because recyclables were no longer being accepted by China because they were always shipping off recyclables to China, and they couldn't do that anymore. China didn't want them, so they came to us and said, hey, we need to change our contract about this. And Mayor Rolfe, who I rarely agreed with, but who was sitting in this seat that time, said, I don't approve of changes to agreements. I mean, he's a contractor, right? He builds streets and sewer pipes and stuff. And he said, if people come to me asking for a change to my contract, I don't go asking for changes to the city unless something has changed for me. Something has materially changed that's outside of my control that I can't do. And he talked about, this China situation with recyclables was a significant enough change that's out of the control of the contractor that he went there and said, I'm going to approve this change because you can't control this. But I don't see that here. I think if there was a significant external pressure, something that you could say was not foreseen or not foreseeable 15 years ago when this was done the first time or the second time, and said, here's a set of situations or here's a set of circumstances that make what I agreed to not possible. Therefore, I need to do this a different way. I might be persuaded, but I haven't seen that. But again, we asked for that, but this was kind of rushed, so I guess we didn't get it. So that's just where I am on this right now. Let's go, Councilmember Shelton.
Just to maybe dovetail off of that, what you just said, because it's not clear the reasons for these requested delays, I start to want to read between the lines. And I want to dig and try to think, okay, why are they asking for this? Because it's not been clearly stated to me other than economic reasons. What I read between the lines, which could be completely off, and I apologize if it is, but it feels like there are other projects that are a higher priority and more profitable that are being prioritized above this. That's what it feels like. And that this needs to be that somehow this needs to be pushed down the road because it's a less profitable project than another one that's waiting in the wings. That's how it feels. I hope I'm wrong. I apologize if I am. But I don't want to acquiesce the position of the city where it's currently at for nebulous reasons.
Councilmember Green.
I'm going to make a motion.
Move.
I am going to move to deny ordinance number 2431 regarding the Third Amendment to the Bangerter Station Development Agreement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Green and it's seconded by Councilmember Shelton. Just for clarification, a yes vote on this is a no to the developer because it's a motion to deny. Is that fair? Okay.
That is true.
Okay, so if you, yeah, as long as everybody's clear on that. Any questions? Discussion to the motion? Okay, I'm seeing no discussion to the motion, so let's go ahead to the vote. Roll call vote.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom.
Yes.
I show the motion to deny is passed 6-0.
Perfect, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda, these next two are kind of related. We have ordinance 2443, amending city title code 141 for elected officials compensation. Should say elected officials, not election officials, unless we're talking about Tangi's pay. Elected officials compensation and discussion regarding council compensation for inclusion in the FY26 budget. These are kind of related. Let's go, Mr. Anderson, to introduce.
Yeah, this is coming to you at this time at the request of the council from the October 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting. There was a lot of discussion. Councilmember Lamb had made a proposal for a substitute. When we went back, as staff had looked at the minutes, which is included under item 6 of the request for council action, there was at least 4 council members, Lamb, Whitelock, Bloom, and Bador, who suggested that reviewing the council salary every 4 years is desirable. We did also talk, and I'm sorry, not we, you talked about adding cost of living adjustments, citizens review, citizen committee review, and that also to do it in December. So that's why it's at this meeting tonight. A couple things that maybe, or sorry, let me back up. So what's in the packet with 141 is basically what was at least 4 members of the city council agreed to on October 23rd meeting. The provisions of that is that it's done in the year leading up to an at-large election, which would be this year. The council would have time between December and April of those every 4 years to discuss council compensation before there's a filing period for the at-large races and prior to the mayor presenting his budget to the city council. And the policy also includes a provision that it wouldn't start until January 1st, 2026, in this case, after the election and the new people are elected or re-elected, depending on how the election goes. So that's the code that's before you. Just adopting this code does not change any salary. It's just the policy going forward. If you choose not to adopt this tonight, you want to have further discussion, we can do that next month, if that's what you choose to do. But that's what is before you that we were directed by at least 4 of you to bring back in December. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for staff? I'm going to just express that I think the history on this is a little interesting. We had a committee of the whole meeting. We kind of talked about it. We kind of came to an idea of how we wanted it to be presented back in a formal meeting. Between that time and the formal meeting, there was some input that was received, and it kind of, for lack of a better word, it kind of washed out the sandcastle we'd built a little bit in the committee of the whole meeting. Does that make sense? So it's now, it was, when it was discussed in this meeting, the one that I wasn't here for, it like kind of like the sandcastle that we kind of built was not there anymore. My personal preference would be to bring this back to committee of the whole and have that workshop discussion again, because clearly the pages that we were on have changed or did change. And so I think that's my preference. I think we should bring D and E here back to a committee of the whole, just talk about it one more time. That's just what I think. It's not a motion yet, but maybe it will be after we discuss some things here. Councilmember Green.
From the committee of the whole meeting, I was one of the two people. I think me and Council Member Shelton, as people have looked at it, we're not undecided. We're undecided. I think we've had, because I had a particular position about compensation, and I have subsequently given up that position on compensation. And so, but I do believe that the ordinance in front of us is what was decided by the substantial group, is that what we would do is we would have discussions, and that we weren't going to, and then once we had this, that what that would do is it would take the politics out of who's proposing a pay raise, that it always comes up like the mayor's does every 4 years. Ours comes up every 4 years during the year prior to the at-large election, or prior, basically just prior to the at-large election. And so I'm okay with this. I'm okay with the ordinance. If we want to have further discussions on the council compensation for the budget, I'm okay with delaying that, because it's 9 o'clock at night and Mr. Anderson and Mr. Thomas has sat that back there a long time waiting for us to get to their nominations. And so does anybody else have any? I was gonna move to approve ordinance number 2443. Yes, I'm moving to approve 2443.
Motion by Councilmember Green, Councilmember Shelton,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Shelton. I imagine I have discussion, the motion. Councilmember Whitelock, let's let you go first.
I'll just say for this one, I could go either way. I was kind of surprised because who originally the RCA's names were on there, that one of them weren't here. So I could have gone either way on this.
My concern with this is that it doesn't do anything. Really. It leaves it, it keeps it just as political. It's just now forced being a political discussion every 4 years instead of when somebody decides to bring it up. But it's the same discussion. It's the same, it's just, it doesn't change anything other than bringing it up every so often. That's the only thing that really changes here. Regardless of whether this is adopted or not, you still have to have a public hearing every year. So regardless of you change it, you don't change it, whatever, saying that, well, we should have public scrutiny on this every year, we will, every year. One way or another, right? This sets some things in place which are fine, saying it takes effect on the first Monday of January following the at-large election. Things like that. It's fine, but it doesn't do anything. This doesn't move the needle on why Councilmember Lamb and I brought the discussion up. It just doesn't move the needle. Compensation doesn't change under this. It doesn't give us a benchmark or something to index it to or anything else in order to further remove the political discussion out of it and kind of just make it a standard lowly paid kind of a thing that just goes with the times. It just does, yeah, doesn't change anything. So that's my thoughts. Councilmember Shelton.
I want to ask you a question. What you were hoping for, Councilmember Jacob? What you're hoping for is like a COLA type situation where it's a percentage that's just kind of automatic every 4 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So, oh, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
if that's the case,
And see, this is why I wanted a workshop, by the way.
right? So the back and forth, right? Like you said yourself, there's going to be a public hearing regardless.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure I see the value in having a COLA because we're going to come under public scrutiny for raising our own pay regardless.
Mhm.
But could you speak to that a little bit?
I can try. Yeah, you're gonna have a public hearing in any given year. I see it kind of like the property tax. Not policy, because we haven't formalized it, but in practice for the last 4 or 5 years, we've undertaken the practice of an inflationary property tax rate change, right? To help combat the effects of inflation on the city's revenue, right? And that, as much as anything else, that practice that we have undertaken as a body for the last 5 years got us a much better bond rating, saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest on our last $12 million bond. Maybe not hundreds of thousands, but definitely tens of thousands. I don't know what exactly the rates were, but so even though we don't have that written in saying we're going to look at property taxes with a 2% bump every year or whatever, because that's kind of become practice, it's become less controversial than going 5 years and then raising it 18%, which used to be our practice, or 4 years or 6 years or 10 years or 20 years, and then having large increases. Last time council pay was changed, it almost doubled. In 2016 is when it went into effect. 2015, the council voted on it. It went from $800 and something a month to $1,500 a month. Almost doubled because it hadn't changed in a lot of years. So my concern with the way it is and the way I see it remaining is that it doesn't change for 15 years or whatever, and then it goes from 1,500 to 3,000. And now instead of having a small inflationary adjustment every year, now you're left with big surprise things that you think people are mad about 2% a year. Think about how mad people get about 100% every 10 years or whatever. So that's my thoughts. Councilmember Green.
I know where you're going, but it doesn't matter how we do it. It's still going to be political. I saw what Salt Lake City Council tried to do and try to tie it to their mayor's salary. And it became and it wasn't supposed to be political, and it became political. I've seen other cities where they're trying to not make it political and by doing something, and it becomes political. So and honestly, everything we do, because we're a political body, becomes political. So while I appreciate what you're trying to do, all this policy does, which it creates a policy, and you're right, it doesn't change the rate of salary, but what it does is it forces us to do the same thing that we do with the mayor. I mean, if I remember right, Mr. Anderson, correct me if I'm wrong, but the language of this section is almost identical to the language of the section of the mayor's that when we look at the mayor's salary every 4 years. And so I don't see any difference there, and that's why I'm okay with this, is that then what it forces us to do is every 4 years, we have to have the discussion about where does the pay go? Is it time? Is it appropriate? And we come up with, but it would allow us to look at the councils of other cities. And right now, I don't think and what we're talking about is the policy, not our rate of pay. And so that's where I'm okay with this particular piece of policy. What I'm not comfortable with, and I think the way I remember the meeting that I sat through, there weren't 4 members of the council that were willing to say, I want to put a COLA on, I want to establish a baseline plus a COLA. That wasn't part of the discussion. And I'm not sure I want to go back and, well, that's why I moved to approve this. I don't want to go back and have those same discussions. I think we adopt a policy, and then if we want to have discussions about how much we ought to be paid, we can do that, but it's the same as with the mayor. So that's where I'm at on this.
Okay, before you go, Councilmember Dorr, I got Councilmember Bloom with a hand raised. Councilmember Bloom?
Oh, sorry, I meant to lower my hand. I'm good. I'm ready to approve it.
Okay, Councilmember Bador.
I think my only thing I wanted to add to this was the idea of, we talk about whenever we do this, it's always going to be political. That was why in my original thoughts and conversations with this, yeah, it can be political once, but it doesn't have to be political every single time. My goal has always been with this council that we find ways that we can govern from the dais a lot more than campaign from the dais. And finding some way so this doesn't come up in any way, and it doesn't become fair to whichever year it comes in. It's always going to be someone's going to use it, pro or negative. I would love to come up with something that makes it maybe political once, but then is gone. I was in favor of a baseline, not necessarily in favor of the COLA, but again, my goal with all of this was to find a way, maybe it's political once, but then it's not after that. And that was my only goal with this.
Councilmember Shelton. Alan, your light's still on.
In response to Councilmember Bador, my personal feelings is I'm not sure that anything we do can prevent it from being a difficult political situation down the road, because it's always going to come back to a public hearing. Even if it is an automatic pay raise, it's still going to have to go through that public hearing. And we're going to have people come in and tell us that we don't deserve the money that we're already getting. We shouldn't get more, right? That's just my personal feeling. I think it's just going to be political, and it's a tough situation. Nobody scrutinizes me as a business owner for giving myself a raise, because that's money I earned. But when I give myself a pay raise here, it's money that other people paid out of their own pockets. And that's tough, right? That's hard for this body. It should be hard for this body to do. This should be a difficult process because of our respect for our constituents. But I do like the idea of let's keep on top of it. Like Councilmember Jacobs said, incremental increases are going to be much more favorable, not just for us, but for the taxpayer. So having this come up at least once every 4 years is valuable. And I think this ordinance provides that for us.
I'm going to go to Mr. Anderson. It's a little unusual because there's motion on the table, but
It is,
you're persistent.
and you kind of got off the discussion to the motion. However, I just wanted to provide some clarity. You are in a very unique position in that only the legislative body can set your salary. You set the mayor's salary. He doesn't get to set his salary. There's nothing in this provision that says you can't add an increase in the 4 years. There's nothing in this provision that says you can't do a baseline. There's nothing in this code that prevents you from doing a salary adjustment every 6 months, every 9 months, because you are in a very unique position. If you look at the very last statement, it reads something along the lines of nothing in this provision prevents you from adjusting your pay at any time because you have that authority. All this code does require you to do is that you have to review it at least every 4 years before the mayor presents his budget to you, and it doesn't take effect until January 1st after an at-large election. That's really the only thing that you're passing, but you have an immense sense of authority over what you are compensated. And any increase in compensation does require a public hearing as part of the budget process just for your compensation.
Thank you. And I'll just opine that I think we are still on the topic of the motion. So, because we're talking about approving or not approving this policy and what it contains or what it doesn't contain. And that's what we're talking about. Something in the middle of what you said made me want to say something. And then by the time you got to the end of it, I forgot what that was. I am getting old. I'm going to be a grandpa. Three more months. Yeah. Sorry, I thought y'all knew that. You will when you open the envelope that's on your desk. It has the Christmas card in it. Yeah. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
No.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
Thank you. I show the motion passes 5-1.
Thank you. I remember what it was. I mean, it wasn't going to change anybody's vote anyway, so just tell you what it was. Is it, I am a little bit, upset is probably too strong of a word, bothered that what was here was not what either sponsor of this brought forward, by the way. So the way I kind of see the process is we bring something up. If you don't like it, you vote no. If you do like it, you vote yes. If you want something else, bring it up and put your own RCA in and bring it up. That's just the way I see it. I might be wrong. You can all disagree.
But
It's
the
fine.
way I see, just so you know, from my perspective, Councilmember Lamb brought to the committee the whole a substitution, and that's what was discussed in the committee of the whole was the substitution, and that's what we're adopting tonight was the substitution.
We haven't had a committee of the whole.
Yeah, we had.
We had that first one.
Yep, and
where-
there was a substitution based on that. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, okay. Not wanting to further belabor that point, let's go to item 6E, discussion regarding council compensation. Hey, look at this. Let's go with the policy we just adopted for inclusion in the FY26 budget. Mr. Anderson, I got your name to introduce this.
This would be the next step is if you want to discuss what the pay is. There's been a number of options, 20% of the mayor's salary, which would be $24,800 a year per council member. The bottom of the RCA list what other cities currently do. Salt Lake City is 25% of the mayor's salary. Yeah. So you can see down on our top of page 2, Ogden's 24,001, Orem 16, Provost 21, Sandy's 24, South Jordan is 16, Taylorsville is 12 as of 2008. They have, and West Valley is 21.5. The ordinance that you just passed does give you until April prior to the mayor presenting his budget to discuss this, or you can set it tonight. You'd
Can I-
still have to have a public hearing as part of the adoption process, and it wouldn't take effect until January of 26.
Right, can I just say that the Taylorsville number is wrong? Because the Taylorsville number includes a COLA that has been happening every year since 2008. You put the 2008 number in there, it means nothing. That's what it was, say 18 years ago, 16 years ago? 16 years ago. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Yet that's the number that keeps getting thrown up whenever we do an analysis on this. Councilmember Whitelock.
I would suggest that this item is sent back to a committee of the whole and that we move on with our agenda. And I don't know if we need a motion because it's not really it's just an item.
I think we worked it on our agenda.
I would just point out that I think the policy we just adopted like 2 minutes ago says that we're going to discuss this in December on years before, this leaves us this meeting. I didn't vote for it.
And we've discussed it and we're moving it to a committee of the whole. So I will move that we take agenda item 6E and move it to a future committee of the whole no later than, what did you say, April, Alan?
It needs to be prior to receiving the mayor's budget, which would be the first Tuesday in May. So I'd have to go look that up. But if you said
Doesn't have
April
to be.
30th. Well, no, the council has an immense amount of authority to change its schedule at any time. This is the policy that was adopted, but if you want to discuss the policy in May or June, you have that authority.
Oh, prior to the deadline.
But it's in A, prior to the deadline of receiving the mayor's budget for the upcoming at-large term, the city council shall place the matter of council member compensation on a council agenda. So this code allows you to discuss it by policy between December and April, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Okay, I misunderstood the policy. Thank you. Sorry, Councilmember Whitelock.
So my motion is to send this back to a committee of the whole. 6E, send it back to a committee of the whole to be heard no later than April 2025.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Whitelock and seconded by Councilmember Green. Any discussion to that motion, Councilmember Shelton?
I am ready to vote on it now. That's my feeling. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to, this is such a difficult subject. I'd rather just take the bull by the horns and wrestle it to the ground and get done with it.
Thank you. Councilmember Whitelock?
But there's really nothing in the packet to vote on. It's that we need to have this discussion. So you want to have the discussion right now and decide and then vote on it? Okay. I don't.
I see fingers poised over buttons. Councilmember Green?
Let me ask the city attorney. We don't have a resolution in front of us. So if we were to have this quote unquote discussion and we came up with a number tonight, can we still vote on that number and say that's our budget guidance without a resolution or an ordinance?
I would say that the council cannot change the compensation tonight through an ordinance, right? We need to have a public hearing before that happens. We need to have something before you. Everybody's on the same page about that. If what we're hoping to accomplish tonight is just to give direction for what's to be included in the budget, I think that can be accomplished through a resolution. Obviously, the optimal situation is to have that in a written resolution before the decision's made, but I don't think it's strictly necessary that that be in a written resolution beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, I mean, your motion's not out of order, but it was put on the agenda for tonight to discuss council compensation for inclusion in the budget. We don't have to do that. We can postpone that. We don't have to, but we could.
So,
Councilmember
sorry.
Shelton.
sorry, out of order. It's just a discussion. It's not to actually set it, the pay.
Right.
Then I would vote yes on Kayleen's. I'd rather do that in the council of the whole.
All right. All in favor of the motion to postpone, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, it's procedural. It's procedural. Yeah. Pamela, were you in favor?
I was in favor, so yes, I.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, that is done for tonight. For tonight. This is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited for this. All right. We have now the consent items. I have been asked by at least two of you to remove the three resolutions, 044, 045, and 046 from consent. So for consent, I would just look for a motion to approve the minutes, consent 7A.
Move to approve the minutes, 7A.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Whitelock, seconded by Councilmember Green. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, rule that motion passes unanimously. And now we'll go to consent 7B, providing advice and consent to appoint James Anderson to serve on the Planning Commission. Way to stick it out, man. I'm impressed. We'll go to who wants to, I was requested by Councilmember Whitelock and Councilmember Green. So you guys want to rock, paper, scissors for discussion?
Okay. I asked these to be polled because what I'm being asked to give is advice and consent. But what it really feels like, what I'm being asked is to just rubber stamp what I've been given. And I'm really struggling with this. I just don't feel that we're doing our due diligence when what we get is redacted. So I don't even know where well, I know where that one guy lives, but I don't know where these people live. And so maybe they all live in the same neighborhood for all I know. And I don't think that's a good idea for the Planning Commission because I think we need to spread them out. And all I get to see is what they give. When I was first on the council, there was a planning commissioner who reapplied and actually didn't get chosen again because the way we did it is kind of like fast track dating. We would split up into 2s or 3s, and then we would actually interview these people. And then we'd go in a room and we'd share our comments of what we gleaned through those interviews. And that's the whole reason I pulled this is I'm not willing, after tonight, I'm not willing to appoint another planning commissioner without the opportunity, at least for the council to weigh in. I just don't, it rubs me wrong, and I don't feel like I'm doing my duty.
Councilmember Shelton.
My thought is that, back when we used to do the interviews, it was a different form of government. And this is a mayoral appointment. I've read the resumes. I'm comfortable with it. I'm ready to vote on it.
Councilmember Green.
I agree with you what you just said, but I disagree with what you just said. The
sausage.
Advice, yeah, it's the sausage. Advice, in my opinion, advice and consent needs to be meaningful. And by the way, Jay, this has nothing to do with you, or Mr. Anderson has nothing to do with you. I'll address you too. I believe advice and consent has to be meaningful. Now, do I want to go the way by the way, if you don't know, Salt Lake City Council in our form of government interviews those appointees in a work session on a regular basis. Do I want to go that far? Probably not. Do I want to have a full congressional hearing on like a Senate appointment does to look at the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of the Army or whoever else gets appointed by the president? No. But I want to figure out what meaningful advice and consent is. What I do want to point out, and Jay, this isn't your problem, but it's your nomination. Resolution 24-045 is appointing Mr. Thomas, and let me read you the ordinance that he's being appointed under. And it specifically says in Title 2, 1-4, and so that we can't approve this on consent. Title 1-4 1-4 talks about terms, and it sets the terms as 3 years by law. If you go down to another section in that particular section, there's a term, and then it says, by the way, we adopted this in April, the city council may waive the term limit for any statutory committee member by passing a reappointment resolution that specifically waives subsection A. The mayor must also recommend the waiver. Now, I'm going to pick on the mayor here, but the mayor doesn't have, the mayor in the RCA doesn't even have a recommended waiver. So if we want that, Mayor, you're going to have to tell us that you want a waiver, and we're going to have to amend the resolution on the fly to make a specific finding that waives subsection A on Mr. Thomas's appointment to make that appropriate under the ordinance. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted it pulled, is because we've got to make those amendments on the fly if we're going to reappoint Mr. Thomas tonight.
Let's go to Councilmember Whitelock, and then I want to
Thank you.
revisit that because.
I agree.
Sorry.
We have changed form of government, and that is why we got rid of many of the appointments that the mayor is in charge of. But this one, statutorily, we are required to weigh in on this one. That's why I feel what I get is not sufficient for me to really say yes or no. That's why I want more, is because I'm being asked to give advice and consent.
Right, but nowhere does it say that it's limited to 2 terms. That's what I'm saying. I think we took that out, and I think we took it out probably for a reason. I think we missed it.
We may have a conflict in the ordinance that you're right. There may be, it says terms of 3 years. There's not a term limit, but the D says waives the term limit. I just want to make sure we're doing this right so that we get that. And if we need to amend if we need to amend it, we need to amend it, and we probably need to go back and amend the code.
Let's go Mr. Anderson first.
Yeah, I just want to get clarification, Councilmember Green, what section of code 1-4 is?
214.
214?
214.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I can't. Hold that thought. Councilmember Shelton.
So if we put this off, what are we doing then?
We're talking about it. Councilmember.
All right, I could get behind that because Planning Commission still needs members in January to be functional and show up to meetings, right? So.
Oh, and I'm not talking about postponing this. What I'm talking about is we can make specific amendment to the resolution verbally that says the reappointment resolution specifically waives 214A and add that line to it and pass it, and we're okay because we did that. Now, Councilmember Jacob is right. 214A doesn't have a term limit, but 214D talks about term limits, so there's an implication, and we probably need to go back and fix that. But to make this cleaner tonight, I think that we can, if we make the individual motions to approve the resolution and vote on it, we get to the one with Mr. Thomas, then we can just add that. And I'll be glad to make the motion and add that line. And then we're clearly inside the lines of probably the intent that we stripped out when we did the code. Or maybe we intended to strip out the term limits, but we didn't take this out. But if we amend the resolution on the fly like that, then I think we're at least then we can say we tried to follow the code a little bit better and we're okay. That's all I wanted to do was just amend the resolution on the fly.
Okay, yeah, I think I wish, I don't know, can staff, I see lots of pointing and scrambling over here. Can staff look up really quick? Shoot, that's the wrong one.
Chair, can we have a 3-minute recess while they're looking at that?
Is that a motion?
Yes. Motion to have a 3-minute recess.
Okay, a motion and a second for a 3-minute recess. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Pamela's opposed. I'll rule that motion passes anyway, because I need a drink.
And I've been trying to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pamela. We'll come back to you really as soon as we reconvene. Alan didn't tell me you had your hand raised. Push it twice. Push it real good. Now push it again. All right, let's reconvene. And we'll go to Pamela Bloom, Councilmember Bloom had a comment or a question.
I agree we need to change maybe some of the wording, but for the advice and consent, and there's nothing against any of these qualified people, but I encourage the mayor to please, 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 please be diligent about making sure the makeup of our planning commission and committees that are assigned match the demographics of our city. I am begging and pleading for that for the future. Please, let's find our entire city is not white men. We need diversity, and we can be better about finding those wonderfully talented people to serve on this committee that match our city. That's all I wanted to say.
Councilmember Green.
Can I move to, so that we
You can
can move
move.
this along, can I move to approve resolution number 2444, providing advice and consent to appoint James Anderson to serve on the planning commission?
Okay, we have a motion for resolution 24044 for approval by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Whitelock. I'm going to say it, but please don't let there be any discussion to the motion. Thank you. All right, let's vote. This is a resolution, so roll call vote.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
and Chair Jacob.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0.
Kendrick.
Kendrick.
It says right here, Kendrick.
Aaron Kendrick.
I'm going to move to approve resolution number 20.
You don't have the mic and you haven't been called on.
Councilmember Whitelock.
I move to approve resolution number 24-046, providing advice and consent to appoint Aaron Kendrick to the Design Review Committee.
I'll second.
Will you really? All right. Motion by Councilmember Whitelock, seconded by Councilmember Green. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Bloom, excuse me.
Yeah.
The motion passes 6-0.
Okay, and for resolution 20045, I'm going to ask the mayor if he recommends waiving the term limit verbally, just to get us, doesn't say it has to be in
Council,
writing.
I recommend waiving the term limit for Jay Thomas.
There you go. Councilmember Green?
I'm going to move to approve resolution 2445, providing advice and consent to reappoint Jay Thomas to serve on the planning commission, amending the resolution and specifically waive section 2-1-4A on term limits.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll just mention discussion to the motion, and I will say the term limits, we found them in the code. They're under 2-2-1 under the planning commission. So they are in there. So that's, imagine the provision you want to waive is the term limits.
I'm just quoting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do think 2-1-4 is the section that we want to waive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll just let it stand as it stands. All right. Sounds good. Motion and seconded as discussed already. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Chair Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bador,
Yes.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
I show the motion passes 6-0.
You sure you want to keep doing this, Jay? I'm just saying. I mean, it's been a long time. I could only handle that one for 6 years. I tell you, or 3 years. I only did that once. Councilmember Green. Councilmember Whitelock.
Oh, I was going to move to adjourn.
That's in order.
And I'll second.
A motion to adjourn, Councilmember Whitelock. Motion seconded by Councilmember Green. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. We are adjourned. 9:24.